Crows flew over the city at night. A girl slowly approached from there, nodding her head as she got closer. A voice echoed in her mind, saying she had done as she was told. She went to the right place. The voice called her cute. Villagers found a body in a well, shouting that it was the demon's doing again. Soon, everyone gathered to cremate the body. The village leader trembled, leaning on his crutch. Some villagers told the chief they were very afraid. But the old man told them to stay calm. The paladin would soon arrive. The villagers repeated this, saying that as soon as the paladin arrived, the problem would be solved. The paladin was a powerful being with God's power. People gossiped that they were saved simply by the paladin's arrival, but the village leader noticed something strange. Turning around, he saw a hooded man and questioned if he had been there before. They wanted to know if the hooded figure was the paladin or a demon hunter. Then the village leader asked, "Who are you?" A paladin was coming to the village. "You could be in the wrong place." The hooded man stated, "I am the paladin." He touched his hood with his glove while the old man questioned, "Are you really the paladin?" The man answered, "I was sent with orders to eradicate demons." Introducing himself as Eden, a paladin apprentice, the young man listens to the grumbling. They mutter that an apprentice is just a child and that they sent a novice instead of an experienced paladin. The village leader bangs his crutch on the ground, staring coldly at Eden, trying to read the boy. Eden doesn't even flinch at the villager's action. The old man sighs, thinking his village is doomed. Eden crouches, analyzing the tracks. They seem significant, he says. The old man grumbles. Dozens of women have lost their lives. All were found twisted and withered. Eden's gaze shifts to the burn mark on the tree. The old man adds, "The paladin would be horrified to see those bodies." The boy's eyes gleam with excitement. A demon that drained women's sensuality. Exactly what I've been looking for. The old man scowls, shaking his head. "That might sound rude, but I'm not sure of your capabilities." Eden nods. "I understand your concerns, but you don't need to worry. I'm not like other novices." Deciding to act, Eden orders all girls of the same age group to gather in one place. The girls, frightened and apprehensive, stand facing the knight. Eden continues walking toward them, then turns back and says, "Finally, they're all here." But Eden takes a deep breath, saying he'd begin the exorcism, emanating divine power from his hand. One of the girls thinks it was golden, wondering if this was the divine power used by paladins. Placing his hand on the forehead of one of the girls, the energy illuminates her, but nothing happens. Eden moves to the next. He notices a little girl trembling in the corner, so he moves closer to her, saying that the demon possessing someone was right there, emanating divine light. He orders them to hold the girl so she doesn't move. The villagers repeat about the demon possessing her, but a boy runs forward, denying it. He stands in front of Eden, saying, "She's my sister, who was sick at home. Please don't burn her. She's family." A villager tells him to stop pushing, saying there's nothing he can do about the demon. They must eliminate it before it causes more damage. He even tells the villager to wait because he doesn't burn people. He only asks them to hold the girl to pinpoint the demon's exact location. But the creature screams, "Humans are noisy," shocking both the boy and Eden. The village leader says the demon is awakened as the little girl twists in dark energy, asking, "How dare you defy my master?" As she'll rip out their souls. Crying, the boy calls out for his sister. Eden thinks Sebastian must be a demonic name and repeats his thoughts about the denial of divine power. Drawing his sword imbued with divine energy, he says, "She is about to be fully possessed by the demon." Then he moves forward quickly, prepared to attack the girl. But the divine energy gathers and Eden stops his sword just in front of her face, awakening the girl from the demon's power. The paladin asks, "Are you awake?" "You don't need to worry anymore. His sword," he explains, "was only for evil and wouldn't harm her." The girl begins crying, asking, "What did I do?" Eden replies, "It wasn't your fault. It was the demon's doing. We just need to end its life." Wanting to know where the demon had told her to go, the paladin rides there on horseback. He asks, "Is this the brewery you mentioned?" As he approaches the place slowly. Something lurks in the darkness. Eden notices a strange presence, wondering if it was on the other side. It seemed like a cheap trick, and the demon dared to lure him. But if it wants to play, he thinks, "I'll play along for a bit." He tells his horse, "We'll head to the other side of Petra." His horse begins to gallop. Heading away from the location, night continues to fall upon the brewery. The demon emerges, complaining that his kind of prey never arrives. Only cowards appear, he grumbles. "I just shortened my list of targets." He pauses, then adds, "I am Sebastian, the incubus." Eden replies, "I'm not a fool when it comes to demons." Sebastian quickly turns to see who's speaking, but the paladin leaps from the ground to attack. "Why are you running away?" Eden asks, preparing to strike. He raises his sword, its tip glowing with divine energy. The sword slashes towards Sebastian, creating an explosion at the impact point. The demon, lifeless, is thrown back. Eden walks up to the body. Sebastian, severely wounded, suffers in pain but begins to rise. Eden, smirking, says it's precisely this regenerative power that makes demon hunting enjoyable. The incubus glares at him. Bastard, he spits. I've taken countless demon hunters' lives. Sebastian charges at the Paladin, shouting, I sent you to the afterlife, Eden. Eden grumbles, you talk too much. He raises his sword, yelling, this ends now. He gathers divine power in his hand, the light growing brighter and brighter as it heads straight for the screaming demon. Sebastian cries out, you're just a dog of the order. The Paladin repeats this, choking him harder against the wall, explaining that he was far worse than that. But the demon's fun should be over now, and Sebastian begs Eden to wait. Eden responds with a smile. You can't play with demons like him, he says. That wouldn't be fun. Remembering the village chief mentioning Eden could even use his divine power for healing, Eden explains, it's a temporary measure. The boy asks about his sister. The Paladin instructs him to give her the flask when she wakes up. The boy notices it was holy water. He thanks the Paladin, and Eden assures him she'll be fine. After a few days of sleep, the village chief calls out to the Paladin, kneeling and pleading to be saved from the demon. Even in the darkness, a small source of light could be considered precious. Other villagers cry, saying they pray to God for him every day. So the Paladin should save them from the demon, they plead, judging in God's name, and send a platinum knight who eradicates evil. He asks the villagers not to kneel, as he'll do his part as a human, the eyes of God that illuminate the night. This world called them paladins. Sebastian coughs before losing his life, but Eden turns towards him, explaining that what he gave to the village wasn't holy water, but a sleeping potion, because ending Sebastian's life before the girl wakes should resolve the issue. Eden's real name is Yuga, and he decides to check his stats. His ability, granted by the sun god Vacker, called Noble Master, earns respect and envy, trading them for divine power. Eden remarks that daily prayer to the gods kept the villagers knave. 2 years have passed since he reincarnated into the game and became a paladin, but he doesn't believe in God. Even if they pray, it won't do any good, he says. Sebastian asks, how can a paladin who doesn't believe in God use divine power? Eden simply stares at him, expressionless, before changing his face and calling him a bastard. His skill, Seeker of Destruction, gave him hatred for demons, increasing his stats whenever he took their lives. He charges forward with a punch, shouting that the incubus talks too much, hitting Sebastian directly in the face. Eden was tired of stories about a world governed by gods. Those peaceful days had been destroyed by demons, and then he alone confronted the demon Vacker, the sun god's son. After his victory, people began worshipping only the sun god, and humans who serve the sun god use their divine powers to defeat demons. That's how he obtained his powers, and that's the story of this game. A demon kidnaps a child who cries for help. Someone watches from behind the stone. Eden wonders why he was stuck in that terrible game. A demon punches the spot, knocking Eden face first to the ground. That game had been strangely familiar since its release. It was always known for its extreme difficulty. Eden identifies it as a minor. The number of people who completed the game was 0. Then the minor strikes the man. Yuji Te is thrown far away, standing in a crater caused by the attack. He groans, still badly wounded, spitting blood, unsure of what to do. Then he sits up, thinking it hurt and felt real. He sees 2 children begging the sun god to save them, as well as to keep evil away from them. Eden asks, what are they doing? Why are they running? But he hears a grunt beside him. The minotaurs had reached his location. Eden questions why there were so many monsters. He tells the woman to flee, but she continues begging the sun god. The man urges her not to pray, but to run instead. He wonders if he might lose his life in this situation. However, he sees a fallen body holding a sword. Eden moves to grab the sword, wondering if the woman would continue ignoring him. While she uses her hands to pray, he uses his to defend. A golden energy surrounds the sword. The young man identifies it as a status window. The Noble Master ability from the sun god activates. It's a unique ability I've never seen before, he says. As the monster charges, he feels powerful and believes he can handle it. He uses divine light at the tip of his sword, charging forward, cutting the monster in half. He stops behind the monster, thinking he defeated it easily, thanks to divine power alone. However, the Minotaur prepares to attack again. Eden notices and quickly turns around, coming face to face with the Minotaur charging at full speed. The young man surrounds his body with divine energy, but he's not ready for this. He gets hit in the stomach before he can retaliate. He is thrown far away. Then the Minotaur begins approaching once more. Eden sits up, still wounded on the ground. He stands, claiming it doesn't hurt due to the divine power. Demons have a weakness to divine power, he thinks. So he can defeat this monster. Eden notices a new skill appearing in front of him, wondering if this was happening again. The Seeker of Destruction ability appears. The man complains, if I were such a powerful god, I shouldn't have to carry this responsibility. I should let the gods defeat the monsters themselves. He waits for the monsters to charge, slashing all those in front of him. He feels stronger thanks to this new ability. Then he moves toward the Minotaur's head, gathering divine energy in his fist and striking the monster's skull. Its eye begins to bleed. Eden prepares to finish it with his sword. No one had ever managed to complete this game. Due to its extreme difficulty, Eden thrusts the sword into the Minotaur's body. The woman continues crying and praying. The man stands atop a pile of monsters. Among them, the closest person to finishing this game is Eden. He returns to the village with the demon tied to his horse, and the villagers celebrate the Paladin's victory. The village chief thanks him, crying for what he did. It wasn't much, Eden says, but please accept the reward. Eden refuses as the order doesn't accept payments. It is forbidden by the sun god. The village leader cries, calling out to the Paladin. All the villagers repeatedly praise the sun god. Eden asks, when did the demon appear in this village? I need to check this before leaving. The chief replies, it appeared about a week ago, and then tells the Paladin something strange. Eden puts on his hood to leave, saying that was helpful. I understand. He decides to depart with his horse. As he rides, he reflects, it's funny, he doesn't believe in gods, but here he is, a hypocrite, just for stats. A piece of trash. He's been in this game for 2 years, and the difficulty is insane. But as a paladin, he's been able to use his skills well. Dragging Sebastian's body along the ground, Eden thinks there's only one way to advance, strictly following the game's storyline. Suddenly, someone calls out to him. A figure in white clothing dismounts from their horse and says, I've been waiting to accompany you on your journey. Did you manage to defeat the demon? Eden greets his master. Hexareth replies, it's hard to believe Eden still remembers me. This was your final training. It was also the last time I would accompany you as your master. Of all my students, you are the only survivor. Thus, they approach the Baron's castle. Eden wonders about the bodies tied up. Hexareth explains this was the price the Baron paid to protect his daughter's innocence, although he never imagined escorts would pay such a price. Eden grips the horse's reins tightly, reflecting that a man's life was worth less than a fly. This world was disgusting, but what he truly can't stand is having gotten used to this world. The Baron shouts, it's about time. He asks, when were you planning to arrive? Standing in a vast hall with his daughter, Eden introduces himself. I am the Paladin apprentice Eden. I captured the demon as ordered. Throwing Sebastian's body to the ground, the girl asks, how dare you bring back the demon who dishonored me? Shouting for the guards to take the head of the fool who brought the demon back alive, she is Eleanor Mayer, the incubus victim and the Baron's daughter. Sebastian asks, who are you, and what the hell are you talking about? But the princess uses her heel, stomping on the demon. Eden should have killed him and discarded the body. Was he incapable of defeating him and brought him back instead? And that's why apprentices are useless. She stomps repeatedly on the demon Sebastian. She glares at him in anger. Even, she explains, the Baron ordered him to capture the demon alive so he could take out his anger. Eden thinks about how the demon had asked who she was. It seemed like the demon had never seen her before and was being accused. But Eleanor calls him a piece-ups, slapping Eden in the face. How dare you talk back? She asks. If it were me, I'd bow and apologize without saying a word. She prepares to hit him again, but Eden grabs her hand. The girl asks, how dare you lay hands on a noble's body? Her knight tries to draw his sword. Eden tells him, use your brain. You're a member of the Order, and you'll soon become a paladin. Do you really want to make the Order and me your enemies at the same time? The knight sheathes his sword with a snobbish sound. The princess calls a maid, then slaps her across the face. She repeats the process. Eden asks, what are you doing? The princess asks, do you have a problem with me doing whatever I want with my possessions? She orders him, get rid of the demon. It's disgusting that he's still breathing. Eden thinks about how she was using her position as a weapon, and it was revolting, but besides that, he was sure she was hiding something. So he says, I can't take the life of someone like this. The princess asks, what do you mean? But Eden replies, it's not right to take the life of a demon who lusted after you so easily. It might set a bad example. He prepares to kick Sebastian, landing a hit on the incubus's stomach. Sebastian asks, do you really think you can do this and get away with it? But Eden tells him to shut up. The only reason you're dying like this is because you touched her. Sebastian tries to protest. I don't even remember getting near her. It wasn't me. Meanwhile, the princess's knight whispers, you should go inside. This situation isn't good. Eden thinks about how the demon claimed he hadn't touched her. Sebastian yells at the princess's knight, why are you pretending not to know me? I was in bed with the paladin. Was this all a plan to summon me and sacrifice the village? Using a demon to deceive people makes you the real monster here. Eden thinks he finally understands, then cuts off Sebastian's head. He asks, where are you rushing off to? After beating the 49th demon. He had officially become a paladin, yet he could not ignore the demon's final words before it was destroyed. The princess asked, do you dare to trust a demon's words over mine? If you plan to investigate, you better have a convincing reason. Eden asked, are those people hanging outside all guards punished for the recent incident? But something was unusual. One of them was still alive, and the princess seemed to hold him in high regard. The young woman said, "Prove it." Eden replied, "I have another theory. Sebastian was a demon that drained the life force from women. Victims were usually left weakened until they died. But that woman, she seemed perfectly fine." She asked, "Are you implying I lied?" The paladin said, "In the village, the demon appeared suddenly, as if someone had summoned it. Do you know something? Because I sensed something from your guard, the one standing next to you, ready to strike." Eden sprang forward into the night. "From the moment I arrived, I could smell that dark presence." The paladin reached toward the guard, recalling the moment a blade struck a servant and the scandal tied to the princess. A voice asks, "What was that scream?" Something must have happened to the princess. The girl responds, "How are you going to fix this? I thought it came from the other side." The knight says, "The commotion is being caused by a demon." She adds, "It'll become true if a real demon appears. You said you loved me, and I'll give you a chance to prove it. Risking your life to summon a demon. The order will take care of it. All you need to do is summon it." Then she considers how she feels about him, going from being a mere guard to the hair of a baron. He explains, "Demon summoning magic would appear if I cast it, as divine power flows through me." As vials float around the guard, Exoreth says, "That was the fake holy water I found in her chambers. I can tell you've been suppressing your magic with it this whole time." The knight protests, "It was all a misunderstanding. I had reasons for everything." Azareth approaches, asking, "And what was that reason?" Eden looks straight ahead, saying nothing, while his master says, "He's a man of honor. Do you want me to investigate the princess's inner circle?" Eden agrees, asking, "Will it take long?" His master replies, "No, a proper search of her chambers will quickly find the evidence. He just needs to keep her occupied and leave the rest to him." The Inquisitor Exoreth is a renowned character in the game. He burns the man with magic, saying it's a high-level blasphemy against the order to suppress demonic energy used to cause destruction. The princess denies what's happening. Eden steps forward, saying she must be involved in all this. However, his job isn't to expose the truth, but to bring justice to those who deserve it. There's no evidence linking her to the demon. However, the word of a paladin is considered truth. The princess says she knows nothing and accuses her guard of doing everything alone. She claims he threatened her, saying not to speak or he'd take her life. She couldn't do anything, so she stayed silent. He was a horrible person, and she told him to disappear from this world. The burning guard tries to reach for the princess, grabbing her dress with his hand. He screams that he did everything for her and was abandoned in the end, so they would go to hell together. Helliver tells him not to come near, but before he can fully touch the girl, he is burned to ashes on the ground. Someone appears, asking what is going on there. Eden and his master turn to the side. It was the Baron, asking if his daughter was all right. Ezra greets the Baron, saying he seems surprised by the situation, but Eden tells the girl to hold on and stand up. The Inquisitor says that out of respect for his friendship with the Baron, he'll remain quiet, but he won't tolerate this happening again. Eden replies, "This isn't normal. I'm not the kind of person who agrees with this." But Kareth says purification doesn't distinguish between nobles and commoners. We must be fair. He tells the girl to consider herself lucky. The Baron thanks the order for taking care of the demon, but the princess gets up, deciding she needs to rest. Eden reflects that she was escaping judgment for now, but many people had seen. Rumors would spread in the blink of an eye. A scandal involving a royal escort and a demon summoning, something the Baron would eventually find out. It would be the end of her reputation, a result of her own actions. A bald man appears and asks, "Is the boy the famous Eden?" He says, "It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Forel of the southwestern Daces, a bishop." Eden wonders why he's here. In a game ruled by difficulty, he needed a truly evil character. Bishop Forel was the perfect villain. Eden wonders if he appears meaning because of the difficulty. But still, he says it's an honor to meet the bishop. The bishop apologizes, explaining that Eden probably just completed a mission and must be tired, but he returned to ask a favor. Although it's usually the Pope who ordains paladins, he would like to conduct a shorter ceremony. Eden asks, "What happened?" For, the bishop explains, a group of demon worshippers was recently discovered. Azarath asks, "Is it about the demonic cult?" The bishop confirms, yes, it discovered the cult is very powerful. It's not something ordinary soldiers can handle. They need maximum strength. Eden reflects that given the internal situation in the order, it's likely that support from other paladins won't be possible. But since it's Forel, it just might be. He asked Eden to be officially declared a paladin right there, because he wants him to hunt those who betray the gods and commit evil acts, especially since children keep disappearing, a repulsive act of the demonic cult. Eden smiles and thinks, yeah, that's it. Calling him a filthy old man, a predator, Eden knows that no matter which path you take in the game, you'll end up face to face with him. That filthy elder must be trying to intercept the children along the way. And if that's the case, Eden kneels and says that the will of the order is the will of God, and he'll gladly accept this honorable opportunity. First says, here stood a child blessed by God and graced with his favor. While Eden thinks the filthy old man is in a hurry, the bishop continues saying, the child wished to offer his sword to the gods, becoming your blade. Eden wants to destroy the old man down to the root. Forel declares that from this moment on, he is a paladin, with the right to judge in the name of the gods. No one can oppose it. In the guest room, a boy shouts that it was perfect for Eden. The man wonders if he's overreacting, thinking that in the game it was cool, but now it's just too much. However, the boy insists it was perfect. A paladin is the symbol of the order, so it suits him well, representing authority, majesty, holiness, and virtue. He looks at Eden in admiration, the one who passed the paladin test in 2 years. That boy is you and Eden's temporary servant. Then he says it's an honor to serve him. Eden recalls for saying that a paladin must be served, and that he'd assign a recruit to him temporarily. He orders, recruit boots are elite by nature, but this one is clumsy and physically weak. The troops assigned were far too weak to fight the demonic cult. Instead of sending stronger mages and soldiers, they sent a bunch of ordinary knights so the children could be intercepted. And that's exactly what Forel wanted, to choose a cemetery to ambush his allies where the cult is extremely powerful. Eden wonders if there's a way to achieve his goal without them. Kareth interrupts his student's thoughts, jokingly asking, you don't seem happy. Are you planning to fight dressed like that? Eden narrows his eyes and says, I have something to ask. He then asks, where has my master been traveling alone? Seth responds, you're very sharp to have figured that out. Eden points out, your robes are dirty and weak, while the master insists you should wash them. But Eden's vision and sense of smell aren't human. He thinks to himself that his stats must have been boosted. Hexereth asks, did you notice anything strange? The Inquisitor is slightly obsessive, but he never acts against his own principles. Eden answers, the whole thing is strange. Exorith was a total ally in this matter. The master explains, I went to check out the ambush site. There was definitely a lot of magic in the air, and he didn't want them to notice, so he didn't eliminate it. Then he visited the cemetery where they were going to be ambushed and found something interesting. Eden asked, what did you find? Sir explained, some graves had been dug up. Eden was left in shock. Those are signs of necromancy. Sir continued, spells from occultists. The master admitted, I'm ashamed to say this, but I couldn't dispel the magic. Eden responded, if you couldn't, then the enemy's level must be incredibly high. Axar asked, what do you think this means, Eden? Eden paused. It could be a simple setup or a well-prepared trap. 2 options. Report it to the bishop or fall into the trap to discover what's really happening. Astrith asked, what would you do, Eden? Eden replied, I want to act. I need to see things with my own eyes. The moon was full in the sky as the group advanced toward the graves. Exoreth commented, the magic is more intense. It's the perfect setting to face demons. The soldiers behind Eden trembled, asking, what should we do? The paladin thought they were useless. You don't need to do anything. But then the ground started to shake. Suddenly, a knight asked, what's that? Eden snapped, stay sharp. An attack is coming. A hand emerges from a grave, followed by bodies rising all over the ground. Corpses, already decayed from decomposition. Eden uses his divine power, shouting, the undead are attacking. He thinks it's a skill activation, assuming a necromancer is nearby. But it's a great chance to gain experience. He channels magic into his sword. Looking to the side quickly, he comes face to face with the undead. He unleashes a crescent slash, sending those damn demons back to hell. The strike draws a line in front of the remaining monsters. Exar thinks, thanks to Eden, I can now freely use my magic. He says, I'll clean up this mess. The soldiers are stunned while the undead are shaken. Their skulls fill with wounds that are covered by green smoke before exploding in front of the group. Eden is impressed at having eliminated so many monsters at once. Sarah says he didn't break the spell when he arrived. The paladin replies, at least he was prepared. He thinks to himself, if he were an enemy in the game, he would certainly be one of the hardest to defeat. Eden is lucky to have him as an ally. Eden says, I'm going to find the necromancer nearby. When they hear a laugh, she says, it's impressive. I can believe they'd be so prepared to face the undead. But it would be a shame if it ended like this. She asks, how about testing your true abilities now? Yoan warns Lur Eden to pay attention to the smoke that was forming. More undead begin to appear, their decomposed bodies taking shape. Eden says this isn't good at all and orders his student to stay alert. It's not just talk anymore. The paladin says not to worry and that he should focus on firepower. Thinking he needs to hurry and get the necromancer, he turns and wants to know how the recruits are doing. The soldiers seem frightened before the undead. Eden wonders if he brought them in vain and tells them to stay back until he's interrupted. Haxoreth says he can't keep fighting alone and whispers for Eden to use everything he has available, even if it's little. Give them a chance, he urges. No one is a veteran from the start except you. The soldier grips his sword tightly. Eden stays silent in the face of his master's request, but shouts, "Once the battle begins, I won't be able to protect the soldiers." Yuan yells that he'll fight with everything he's got, even if it means going to the afterlife. Eden reflects that he was determined to fight, even if it cost his life. He couldn't deny that determination. He yells, "The heretic we all hate is right there. Their bodies might not be strong, so they must be careful. Once the battle begins, he wants a pentagon formation with him at the top edge. They must maintain it. The army charges against the zombies. Eden thinks the recruits will fight by borrowing the divine power emanating from him. Even though they can't manifest it themselves, with a paladin by their side, they should perform well. It's not very exciting, but it's calmer than Eden expected. Axar prepares a divine magic spell and launches it at the skeleton army. Eden reflects that his master is doing well as always and the recruits are doing their part. Something feels off because the magic is getting worse. If they get past the undead ahead, reaching the necromancer will be easy. And if that happens, everything will be over because the undead will return to their rightful place outside of Forel's plans. But then something falls behind Eden. He's stunned, wondering what it was. A masked monster simply sizes up. The paladin warned everyone be careful, but a subordinate's head is cut off right in front of him, blood splattering across Eden's face. Eden wonders if it's a dark knight because they are the most powerful undead. A soldier warns Lord Eden that they're in trouble since the undead are approaching. The necromancer laughs, saying everyone seems to be having fun. Eden is caught off guard by that, but the necromancer adds, the knight has recognized the paladin as an enemy and has been wanting to fight for a long time. He's eager for battle, but unfortunately, he has other matters to attend to. He needs to go now. Eden wonders if that's the necromancer, because usually anyone with the power to summon a dark knight is famous, but he's never heard of this one. He wonders if it's because of the game's difficulty. The soldiers can barely keep up with the regenerating undead, and Eden can't ignore the dark knight. He wonders why such a powerful necromancer exists this early in the game, but suddenly, a blue light floods the area. Azer asks, "Are you all right? Do you think you can handle the night?" The student agrees, and the Inquisitor continues, "I'll leave it to you. A drawn-out fight is useless. Go and strike the Dark Knight's core." While he goes after the Necromancer, he asks his student not to die. Eden shouts that he'll defeat the Dark Knight on his own. He just needs the soldiers to handle the hordes. If anything happens, he can protect them. He tells them not to fall, thinking they'll all be gone if he gets the Necromancer. But he must assume the worst since he has to fight with victory in mind. But as long as there's a core, the Knight will regenerate infinitely. That's his weakness. Eden says, "I'll find the core and destroy it." The Paladin imbues his sword with divine energy, wielding it against a monster of darkness. Eden tries to pierce the creature's belly, but the monster doesn't even react, making the young man uneasy. He strikes again to cut the creature, but it dodges, raising its hand against the Paladin. Eden dodges and wonders where he should attack now. Leaping from the ground with his sword raised above his head, the creature protects its head. The Paladin decides to wait for an opening, switching the direction of his sword in hand. He delivers a horizontal slash that severs the monster's head. It falls to the ground before it can react, but it's still alive, grinding its teeth. Eden returns to his original position. Wondering if it's over, he is startled by what happens next. An explosion erupts in the combat area, throwing the Paladin far away. Eden spits blood. If not for his armor, he would have lost his life. He led it thinking the head was its weakness, but it was already regenerating, and he wonders why it was protecting it if it wasn't a weakness. Eden begins to rise, thinking that even if it's not a weakness, if it's being defended, the weakness might be somewhere near the head. It was impossible, Eden says, surprising the monster with his action. He stands up and throws his sword. The monster bats the sword away, roaring with rage at the attack. Eden smiles because the weakness was the tongue. Then they clash swords again. The Paladin still can't strike the creature directly, but he decides to remove its legs to throw it off balance, then strike, lending a kick to the monster's chest. Eden wonders if now he only needs to destroy its core, clenching his fist as he moves in. I will pierce the monster's liver. Striking it with his sword, Eden rips out the creature's core. Then a message says its experience has increased for defeating the Dark Knight. Vile. Exora says the Necromancer chose to go to hell because he was a demon who didn't hesitate to blaspheme against the gods. But the Necromancer replies, "My God is different. I am devoted to him." The Inquisitor suddenly turns, seeing Eden, and asks, "Am I hallucinating? How is my student here? Did you defeat the Dark Knight?" Eden confirms, "It was a difficult fight." Azeroth replies, "The recruits must have done well here. They won't find anything there." The necromancer mocks them. I managed to defeat the Dark Knight, but it's a shame. There was no one stronger than me. Eden responds, you always want fresh meat, a puppet you can move, even if it's rotten. I have many questions for you. The necromancer asks, what could you think I would answer? He jumps back, then says to his lord, absorb me. I offer my soul to you, my god. Everyone is shocked as the necromancer leaps off the cliff. Azarath complains, this is no good. Without him, we can't do much. But Eden channels divine energy into his sword and throws it toward the necromancer. It comes very close to him, piercing and pinning him to the wall. Hexerpath jokes, incredible. Is your student a biblical character? But Eden replies there's no time for jokes. They need to reach the bishop. He runs off, saying he'll catch up and join them later, jumping off the cliff while shouting that he'll see his master soon. Azarath simply comments that he's gone and decides with the army that they're moving out. Eden reaches the wall of the abyss, sticking his sword in it to avoid falling. He begins descending toward the necromancer and his main sword. Pulling the sword from the wall, the necromancer says that having the ability to do that only makes him want Eden more. According to his deal with the bishop, in exchange for Eden, he could have had the best Dark Knight in existence. Eden reflects on the deal Fel had made with him, grabbing him by the shoulder, wondering if the human sacrifice scene had changed. Advancing to reach his master, Eden needs to check as quickly as possible. He heads toward a fire that's raging, with several people lying on the ground. Eden thinks one of the nearby villages has been completely destroyed. But then, he hears a cry for help, becoming alarmed by the scene before him. Exarath is facing tied-up children who are screaming in fear and begging for someone to save them. As they cry, Exarath replies that it wasn't a good idea. Turning toward his student, Eden asked, hadn't you arrived a bit too late? Then casting a fire spell. Amid the chaos, Eden faltered, forgetting something important. In the game, Exarath was known for burning humans without mercy. Eden ran toward the fire, thinking he must be crazy, but he had to save the children. Eden was never a good person. All the good deeds he had done since entering this game were just to increase his stats and, in short, to ensure his survival. In this world, everything revolved around pure strength. Since he didn't want to be stepped on by others, he pretended to be a good human, wondering if he should keep doing that. A blonde girl said it was a ridiculous life force. Eden was surprised by that. Seeing the woman in front of him, the girl called out, Lord Eden, are you finally awake? It was Uriel, one of the Order's saints. Eden asked, where are we heading now? Uriel replied, to the Order. The Paladin felt a chill. He got up, and Uriel warned him, be careful, standing up so suddenly like that. Eden asked, what the hell happened with the children in Tra? Uriel wondered, do you mean the ones not in the forest? But before talking about that, she says he's being rude to someone who saved his life. The saint looks uneasy as Eden scratches his head and apologizes. Uriel replies, I'm not a saint yet, but the children were purified and are safe. Still, he dodged trouble because I stepped in and the others went to the headquarters. Eden thinks not only did he and the children escape the blue flame, but did Exarath really not do anything else? Uriel says he did, although he never goes back on a decision. This time, though, he did. The Paladin wonders what happened, because in every game out, that never happens. But Uriel doesn't seem to know anything as they continue to analyze the current situation. That was the Marcus flag, not the Orders, Uriel adds. So I'm not a saint yet. Eden notes, you mentioned the others went to the Order first. Uriel agrees, but tells him, rest a bit. Eden reflects they're heading to the Order just for Uriel's sanctification ceremony. But if that's the case, it seems like a minor route. Then he remembers it's in that place the event with Uriel happens and normally nothing major occurs. But he says people posing as superiors will contact her. Stay away from them at all costs. Ariel asks what he's talking about, and Eden replies that he's just repaying her favor. The girl tells him to wait, but he runs out of the carriage, heading toward the forest. Eden thinks that if she loses her life, it'll be harder to reach the second part, so he warned her just in case. Heading toward the Order, Ewan calls out to him because he saw his lord jump from the carriage and came to escort him. Coming close with 2 horses, Eden thinks his servant is alive and tells him to hurry up. They all need him, so they ride off quickly. Ewan comments that he's surprised because he thought his lord was going to die when he and the recruits return after capturing the apostate. Eden was covered in flames, and Yuan thought it was strange. How did he survive? Eden reflects on Esaret's power. The blue flame doesn't extinguish after being used, so he says he'd love to hear more about that. Yuan says that the Lord's body looked like it caught fire, but in an instant, the blue flames vanished completely. Eden thinks that Serath's main ability, the blue flame, vanished just like that, and that wasn't in the story he knew. The servant hands over a letter saying he was ordered to deliver a card from Exarath to him. Heading to the prosperous kingdom of Arm to Extrarath's residence, he sat in a chair reflecting on what had happened earlier. He saw someone hallucinating, screaming that they would give everything. Hovering over a wounded body, the older man watched as the child called for his brother, asking if he should send him to be with their mother. But then someone interrupted Exarath's thoughts, saying that Lord Eden had arrived. Exarath waved, signaling that it was all right. With Eden in the room, Exarath remarked, "You showed up earlier than expected. It must be something urgent." The paladin remained silent, ever loyal to his master. Sarah then remarked, "You're not very sociable." His student added, "He rarely stays in the palace." But the master replied, "I don't want to live in a prosperous country." Someone from the order had said this was the foundation of the order, and Exarath had found it ridiculous. "The roots should be pure, but they're rotten. It makes me feel like my faith is being torn away," he explained. He then asked, "Do you know why I'm saying this?" Eve responded, "No." Exarath sighed, "I'm struggling between faith and practicality." Heading to a room where Forel and another person were chained, Exarath said, "The bishop was consumed by lust and allied himself with the heretic. Making a deal to trade Eden for those children," the master laughs. "Even though I'm a paladin," he says, "I was only recently appointed and won't become a dark knight." But now they are caught in a difficult choice as events unfold. A name slips from Forel's mouth. Archbishop Tan, he says. Eden thinks he's a moderator within the order who believes reclaiming the Holy Land is wise. The master agrees. The radicals will gain strength. A war is coming, and while I agree with reclaiming the Holy Land, I'm unsure. What do you think, my student? The paladin replies, "I've been accused, but there's no proof." Saraf asks, "Do you want me to pretend not to know anything?" The student responds, "I want to confirm everything before I report." The master turns and asks, "What if I told you I was going to tell the order to investigate immediately?" Eden reflects, "The Holy Land is infested with demons. If we go down that path, it leads to destruction." He swears by God, "I will stop you, master." Hazarath laughs, impressed. "You don't hesitate. You're always so straightforward." But maybe that's the difference between the two. He snaps his fingers with a smile. Eden prepares to draw his sword, but his master says it was God who extinguished your flames when you jumped in to save the children because you hesitated again. Perhaps you disappointed God. He gave you a chance once, but not twice, and I'm certain the next chance will go to someone more deserving. Eden asks, "Do you agree with that?" Sarah isn't sure how to decide. He asks for forgiveness for being a pathetic master who keeps stalling instead of deciding for his student. But Eden doesn't mind. It's like that for everyone. He activates the blue flame in his hand. Exarch smiles at his disciple, saying, "God chose you." Forel and the necromancer scream at him not to continue, afraid of losing their lives, but Eden stares at the two sinners as they catch fire. Hexareth comments, "This now belongs to me." Suddenly, Eden feels unwell and falls to the ground. His master asks, "Are you all right?" He warns, "The blue flame consumes divine power and energy. You must be careful." Eden reflects that he's glad to have grown stronger with the addition of this new power, but he doesn't understand. Until now, his growth had increased his intent, and it doesn't make sense. Then he asks, "Is my master okay?" He reflects that his master must be upset, catching Exarath off guard with a question. Exarath replies, "You deserve the power, and I'm fine. I'll be happy as long as Eden uses it for good." Eden responds, "Burning innocence isn't an option." Exarath jokes, "I didn't like that. I hope the public appreciates my sense of justice." However, the paladin reflects that he has no sense of justice. "We know what we need to do now," he says. "We need to speak with the archbishop first." He then asks, "Did you reveal any details to the inquisitor?" Exarath shakes his head. "No, I only had some connection with the demon and am not the type to speak nonsense." Eden agrees. "In that case, my master will have to meet the archbishop in person." Exarath replies, "I'll be at the holy book's dedication, so you should wait." Eden nods in understanding, but apologizes. "My master will have to handle the rest of the meeting. I need to rest." And if Sarah understands, he calls out to Ewan asking, "Is he there?" The boy appears and asks what the Inquisitor needs, but Sarah tells him to come along because he has something to tell him. Then she says we're leaving and asks Eden to rest upstairs because they'll be waiting for him. A few days later, the apostate's actions and the countless atrocities committed by Forel were revealed and began to be reviewed by the council. Even though some argued to keep the matter secret, the council was convinced that Sirat's actions outweighed the Marcus Parade. In the basement of the southwestern residence where Forel served as bishop, dozens of children were found, some lifeless, most tormented. The church decided to protect and care for the children in a monastery. Additionally, a special task force of the order launched a large investigation in heresy without success, as only a few priests were identified. Hexif asked what his student thinks because Forel castrated the boys and won't even say what happened to the girls. He also sent the parents to the afterlife. Eden says he fears that the blue flame won't ignite his will. The master replies, "It only burns when God sympathizes with one's convictions. He used his judgment, and salvation. But Eden's must be different. He reflects that he was given a higher innate power, but he can't use it. If he had control over it, he could reach the Vidame, but he assumes he can't rely on that power. Axarath explains that there's no way to cultivate it. He'll have to learn through practice. Eden notices something different in front of him. Yuan was training with a sword. Hexarath asks, has your student never seen it before? He trains here every day. Yuan had complained that he wouldn't be able to help in a fight, so Axarath recommended some exercises, asking, doesn't it look like someone is putting in a lot of effort? Eden agrees, knowing that as the eyes move away from Forel, they always return to him, the center of everything. In the dedication of the Saint's book, now at the temple, a Viscount greets Eden. I've heard a lot about your reputation, he says, capable of defeating a dark knight and even surviving the blue flame. The gods will remember your dedication in saving the young ones. But Eden feels uncomfortable with all the attention. The soldiers gossip about him, saying he didn't seem bad, but a paladin with only one servant looked poor. A man decides he'll greet him personally. He walks toward Eden and says, it's a pleasure. He asked if Eden passed the test in 2 years, saying it'd be great if true. Eden replies that he did, and it's a pleasure, but he's never heard of the man before. The man remarks on the young paladin's lack of experience, but says he should go north. The paladin wonders what the hell is going on, but shakes the man's hand. He says the young man defeated a dark knight, and someday he'll hear the legend of the knight who destroyed the great Mount Bird. Eden reflects that it's a cheap trick to get attention, so he answers rumors are rumors and facts are facts, wanting to know the point of spreading a rumor. The man's hand breaks as the paladin grips it. He wonders what the hell Eden's handshake was. Stepping away from him quickly, he reflects that this is beyond a paladin's strength. Someone approaches calling for Lord Eden. Uriel says he's finally here. Eden turns along with the man to witness the holy presence of Uriel. She says the paladin's advice saved her life and formally thanks him in the name of the Marcus House as her father promised a generous reward. People start wondering if Eden saved Uriel's life while the man thinks of the divine power he could gain, but Eden says he won't accept. The reward, it was God who saved her. Uriel asks, is that really how you feel? The young man agrees, but adds, if she feels that way, she can dedicate the reward to the gods. She accepts, but then asks, can we speak privately before the event? At the back of the temple, Uriel tells him, you can speak freely. He asks, was it God's will that you threw yourself into the Inquisitor's flame? Eden thinks for a moment before answering yes. He had thought she would ask about the processional attack, but says, it was my will. I have no reason to lie. The girl, knowing they'd be exposed to Uriel's ability either way, asks, why take such a huge risk, knowing about the blue flame? Eden agrees, but replies, it was for my own good. She answers, that's ambiguous, but your devotion deserves to be rewarded as God wishes. She then asks, take my hand as you think about my blessing. Because it's a kind of stat buff, it increases his stats and doesn't rely on the luck of a draw. I recite, she continues that the agent of judgment fulfilled his duties with the strength to face evil and care for the weak, spreading the teachings. And if God permits, I will share my blessings with you. She pauses and asks, will you always be faithful? And she asks if he'll spread God's teachings and take the lead in destruction for God's sake, and he affirms it. Uriel asks if he'll always be devoted to God. Eden answers, yes. The lies don't work on Uriel. She is the bearer of a unique divine power called inner vision. The girl asked if Eden was lying. Uriel can see through others' lies, but Yuan suddenly bursts in and shouting that the Archbishop of Tegan is arriving. Eden turns to leave, saying he'll speak with Uriel later and thanks her for the blessing. He'll use it for good. Uriel denies the situation again, wondering if it made any sense. She can't believe a paladin with stats that high still doesn't believe in God. Eden and Yuan run to the hall. The paladin asks, where is the Archbishop? The others respond, he's there. Eden reflects that there have been cases where a character's personality changed, but their nature never does. That hadn't happened until now. However, Archbishop Tane was a missionary faithful to the order, yet the plot had been altered to make him evil. Eden introduces himself to the Archbishop. Tigan comments, you were the hero and contributed greatly to the case. Eden tries to remain modest, thanking him for the support. However, the Archbishop says the order did nothing for him since he did an exceptional job uncovering the case. The Paladin notes there's no hesitation or lies in his words. Tane asks, would you join me for a cup of tea after the ceremony? Eden agrees, saying he would head to the Archbishop's office. As he walks, he thinks that if Tane is truly superior to Foul, he wonders if Tane already knew about him. Because the Tigans are of imperial class, nearly a divine family, the Archbishop says, I'd like to hear the story personally, from the hero himself. The young man thinks that nothing can be done at this point anyway. The Archbishop agrees, adding, we'll meet after the ceremony. Ewan tries to argue with Sir Eden, saying he wasn't going to the ceremony. Uriel looks coldly at him, asking, "What did you just say?" But Ewan dodges the question, running off, scared of the saint. On Imperial Street, the members of the Order march. Eden watches the fireworks alongside Ewan, reflecting that even though it's an important moment to pay critical attention to the saint, the people are celebrating and happy in that place. The young man thinks the Holy Kingdom is a world unlike any other. People live like cattle in a village that was turned into an agricultural zone by a demon. A lord committed horrible acts under the demon's influence. But of course, that's not the only problem. People were losing their lives to hunger, wandering aimlessly, and becoming corrupt thieves just to survive. Without resolving this horrible situation, the Lord insists on launching an expedition for no reason. The real enemy was inside. Eden goes to a door. It opens after a few knocks. Tahane greets the boy, and Eden didn't know much about him until a few days ago. The archbishop asks the paladin to drink the tea before it gets cold. According to Eden's research up to this point, regardless of the archbishop's lineage, he is someone with many contributions, a person invited for his status, power, and honor. And Eden wonders about the demonic cult and his secret communication. The more he learns, the more doubtful he becomes, wanting to know how greedy someone can be. Teen says he knows the reason Eden is there, leaving the paladin completely shocked. The archbishop says, "Forel mentioned your name, you must be aware of it." He then asks, "Are you here to gain something from this meeting?" And Eden asks if this is a confession. A guard lunges with his sword toward the paladin's head, but Eden doesn't even flinch. He simply throws out his hand toward the assassin and grabs him by the neck. He questions, "Did the archbishop really think a sneak attack would work on me?" The flame begins to light up, and the young man notices it appearing in Eden's right hand. Eden reflects that it was similar to the moment when he activated the blue flame back then and was about to defeat them both. However, Tahane shouts at Uriel, "I told you not to step out." The guard apologizes, "I thought I should because of the atmosphere." Tahane explains, "Eden could take both of your lives without even drawing his sword." The guard apologizes again, saying, "I was only doing my job as security." Tahane asks him to calm down and listen, while the young man thinks that wasn't a sneak attack. How does he know? Eden realizes the flame went out. He thinks he had activated it, but was mistaken. "I'm listening," Eden says, "but I won't be merciful if the accusations are true." Tahane talks about paladins being fair in judgment and says, "I can accept that. The demonic cult is growing rapidly, because even beyond the surrounding regions that are outside his reach, they are infiltrating and causing problems." Eden reflects that this is something he had considered. The archbishop formed a secret team to locate them, and the paladin questions why the order hunts public enemies in secret. Tahane asked his opinion on why they haven't been able to destroy them in 200 years, and reveals it's because there are spies in the Empire and the Order. That was his answer. Eden asks, "Are you implying that I'm a double agent trying to take down the demonic cult?" He adds, "Still, being mentioned by Forel is suspicious." Tahane explains, from the list of apostates identified by F4, some had status, but their motives are questionable. They lack intellect. He continues, "I wanted to make a deal with them, but I had evidence, like a research journal from recent years, the investigation team, all the documents with information. God was a witness in the end." Eden replies that evidence can be forged. The archbishop then asks, "Would you arrest me for not believing in my innocence?" But he adds, "The expedition cannot be halted." He wants to know, didn't you come to learn the truth without exposing that? And Eden thinks that if it's true, not only do the characters' personalities not change, but having someone just is a good thing. The archbishop says he'll send all the documents to the Inquisitor's private residence and asks if he can do him a favor. He explains that it was a vast tomb where ancient warriors were buried, and the cult seemed to be trying to gain control over them. They tried to summon something using heroic souls from the tomb. Children were kidnapped and sacrificed over the years. He asks what Eden thinks about that. Eden is in disbelief about it, because that was the first of the catastrophes, manticores. In the game, the cult begins to truly act after summoning this monster. He expected things to escalate, but not like this. At Exorat's residence, he foresees blood within the Order, and Eden agrees. With the expedition cancelled, the archbishop would begin a great purge. If the many documents sent information about priests who committed crimes and acts of apostasy were recorded in detail. Tahane had been hiding his claws for a long time, waiting for a chance to rid the Order of its rotten apples. People who could be helpful, like Exorat. People were starting to show up, and if it was just to prove his innocence, the young man rode off on horseback. He thought, no, it wasn't just that. It was because they shared the same mindset. Now they must go there along with Ewan. The boy called for Lord Eden, saying, "This was the Uriel Inn." Inside, people complained that Daryl was drinking. The young man pulled out another bottle while his friend asked, "Did you forget who's supposed to come today?" But he decided to check later and told him to stand still. Daryl replied, "We shouldn't worry. asked Sign to watch over him until we return. Nothing should happen, but it was just for reassurance, and the little girl agreed. Daryl was just thinking about the arrival of Paladin. He even remembered to mention that Titan's documents weren't forged and apologized for being rude earlier. The archbishop said, "It's fine. We can't blindly trust someone after all." But now that map was exactly what he needed. Eden should make sure to stop the summoning, avoiding unnecessary fights. Stopping the summoning was the priority. Naming Eden as temporary commander of the special forces, it was time for him to leave. Eden said, "I made a request before." He wants a higher grade bottle of holy water, the tear of God. Archbishop Tagain gave the order to stop the summoning, but it could happen elsewhere too. Even if they stop this one, it might appear in another place. But fortunately, he knows when and where, so they must eliminate them before they grow in power, and that's why he needs the tear of Da. Yon calls for Eden and says, "This is Uriel Inn." They enter the inn, which sits in the land of the dead. The boy says, "It's nice here. We should head to the 3rd floor," but Eden trips over a bottle of alcohol. Daryl apologizes and asks, "Who are you?" But Sin yells at her brother, "What are you doing? Do you forget what's supposed to happen today?" Daryl guesses, is Eden the Holy Knight? He apologizes for his lack of manners, saying, "I'm just a humble person." Eden reflects that Daryl smells of tobacco and alcohol. He wonders if it's because his attributes are too high. He then tells him, "Brush your teeth." Daryl replies, if it's an order, it should be done properly. Sing apologizes for her drunk brother. "I'll talk to him," she says. Eden kneels and gently asks the girl, "What's your pain?" And she introduces herself. Then the paladin asks the girl to leave them alone for a moment. Sane says she needs to take care of her brother, but Eden swears nothing will happen. Yona walks off with the little girl and tells her not to worry. Eden isn't the kind to break promises. The paladin says that Daryl is full of discontent, and he asks, what does Eden mean? He just doesn't know how skilled he is. Eden reflects and doesn't believe the rumors. Daryl says that among demon hunters, those who don't know him are small fry. He then rips the gloves from his hands. "It's great," he says, "because the loser must obey without complaints." The hunter agrees. "I'll even lick your shoe if you're strong enough," he adds, drawing dual daggers. He tries to land a slash, but Eden dodges. Daryl tries again, but the paladin evades every blow. Daryl attempts an aerial attack, but only hits the ground. Eden reflects that Daryl was fast and moved well. However, at that speed, he couldn't even get close to the tips of his hair. He moves in to grab the hunter, and slams him into the ground with a hand-to-hand strike. Daryl grins, creating pink chains around his daggers. Eden wonders if it's a chain made of ki, but two people interrupt, asking what's going on. Calling out to the paladin and Daryl, the demon hunter decides to surrender unconditionally and admits defeat, wanting to know if it was wrong to have a reason not to trust the rumors. Since no one dared to fight a dark knight, let alone defeat one barehanded, Eden reflects that the skill and personality were good, but the exaggerated dramatic attitude was irritating. Daryl finally introduces himself as a demon hunter and a man who works for a price. The young man thinks his character is strange. Seated at the table, the girl says they should have fetched him, but their paths diverged. With Daryl introducing himself, they form the team designated by the archbishop. The young man introduces himself as Father Bandel, the one with knowledge to decipher the temple's mysteries. The girl is Knight Sebastine, who works with magic. Daryl asks the paladin what this atmosphere is because he almost got the wrong idea entirely, but Eden grabs his hand and breaks it. The hunter asks what he's doing all of a sudden, while Ethan wonders why he's even doing this and why this guy is so unpleasant. But he says he needs training in etiquette. Daryl jokes that he suddenly became his teacher and apologizes, but either way, it's his turn to introduce himself. He says he's a jack of all trades with combat experience. Eden notes that he's not offended about having his hand broken. Then Daryl introduces himself as a paladin, stating his powers can last more than a day. He reflects that Uriel's buff is playing a big role. Bandel is surprised that he's a paladin. Yuan flatters his master, while Sebastine says this could be recorded in historical text in the future. Eve thanks her and asks Sin to introduce herself. The girl says she's a mage and Daryl's younger sister. Her brother praises her for being high-ranking and insists Eden would be shocked. Sin tells her brother to shut up. Eden reflects that a 10-year-old being so high-level is impressive. She must have been a major name in the game, but he doesn't remember her. So he asks if her name is Sane. The girl agrees Stay was given by her master. The paladin asks the name of her master, since she was trained by him. But Sin says her master didn't tell her. Daryl comments, "Our master was eccentric and didn't say anything special about himself, but we should move on to the current mission." The paladin thinks this mission should be carried out individually since it's important to trust one another to fulfill their duties faithfully. For him, though, there was something hidden, making it hard to trust Daryl. Besides that, the smell was horrible. Though it wasn't exactly bad, it felt like a demon was standing beside him. So he asks the hunter to follow him. The man asks, why so? Suddenly he says, what I said about licking my shoe was just an expression. I wouldn't actually do something like that. It's inappropriate. But Eden calls him noisy, heading outside. What is your master's name? You know, but won't say. He grabs the man's face. I don't need you to speak. I finally understand why you were so irritated. It would be a waste since it's the highest quality holy water, but just a single drop will be enough. Pouring holy water into his eye, Eden calls Daryl's name. How dare you stand before me, acting like a human? He orders the half. Blood to show his true face, wanting to know why the snake-faced demon was trying so hard to suppress his screams. This wasn't just normal holy water. It must have been hard to endure, but Daryl continues releasing his aura. The demon tries to call out to his sister, but Eden throws him down. If you got something to say, you better say it now, Eden warns. I didn't think you begged for your life. Meanwhile, Sebastian yells at Eden to open the door. The paladin asks if they shouldn't wait, but the girl says it's urgent. She was supposed to report this to him earlier, but the siblings are only half-siblings, and one of their grandparents was a demon. Around the middle of the game, no matter which path is chosen, an incident occurs where someone destroys the Order's base. The person responsible for it is the great mage Kadak. The reason he did it was simple: revenge. At the root of that revenge were his half-blooded disciples, cruelly manipulated and then discarded. So he nurtured a deep hatred for the Order. Sistine says that under the archbishop's orders, she watches over and protects the siblings. Bandel explains that he even goes on missions with them at times, assuming this is the half. Brother in question, Sebastian, said, and that the archbishop thought he wouldn't notice. But Sikastine denied that, saying the archbishop expected him to notice. The paladin asked, what were you told to do afterward? The girl went silent, while Daryl trembled on the floor. Eden could pass judgment and use him if he deemed it necessary for the mission. Otherwise, he could even take his life. Whatever Eden decided to do, the archbishop would not question until the mission ended. Eden reflected, thinking that if he killed this man, Kadak would turn the Holy Kingdom into a wasteland. Aside from being a top-ranking paladin, there was no one like him. He had to be careful. I want them to bring Sai here, Eden ordered. But her brother tried to stop it. Sai doesn't know, he said, grabbing Eden's shoulder. He begged, please don't do it. Eden seized his neck. How dare you interfere? He asked, tightening his grip. You must shut up and only speak when spoken to. Sebastian explained, actually, Sin doesn't know about any of this. It was never mentioned before, and she hasn't been rejected by holy power. Eden reflected again. He wasn't sure how, but it was possible it came from Kadak. He had wondered why Kadak left her there. Ewan talks about Eden's fight with the Dark Knight impressing the girl, while the paladin thinks there was a genius among Kadak's disciples. Sebastian says she's been feeling that way in recent months while observing the siblings. Sin says that, according to the stories, the paladin was truly amazing and would always be remembered. Then the knight says they were closer to humans. Vandal asked him to show a bit of mercy, and Eden notices both of them sympathizing with the siblings. To think that even a priest and a knight would defend a demon. But the priest says the blood in our veins is more human than anyone else's. Eden doubts such words could be spoken while being questioned by the Inquisitor and says, I'll postpone this meeting for now. The three remain silent in the room. Sin asks, has Lord Eden returned? Ewan wonders if his boss finished the conversation, but the paladin walks right past the two, leaving the girl and the man confused, wondering what they talked about. However, Ewan says, it'll be fine. You shouldn't worry. The girl agrees, falling silent as they think. She asks, should I do it that way for my master? Kadak is surprised by the radius of destruction, saying she was already this strong. And Daryl excitedly says, it's hopeless when it comes to magic. Their grandfather replies, your granddaughter has natural talent for magic, but there's no end to development. She could still improve. He hugs his sister as he speaks. Kadak tells them, your abilities shouldn't be used by just anyone. You should only keep honing and sharpening them. Daryl jokes, if the master is a mage, he should teach us magic. The girl then asks, do you have any skills? The old man smacks his grandson on the head and asks, what are you talking about? Daryl complains, why did you hit me? Night falls once again in the desert. He reflects after a little rest, he'll return. What matters is that he discovered the reason behind Kadak's incident. Tegan was behind it, using people when needed, and when they were no longer useful, discarding them without mercy. The knight and the priest, who were supposed to kill the demon, ended up sympathizing instead. Everything was contradictory to Eden. But the young man sees S and Ewan sitting ahead. The girl says, after I gave this necklace, my master disappeared. Not long after, my brother and I were dragged into the order for no reason. The paladin stays silent as he listens to that. But the archbishop told the girl that her parents and their master committed a horrible crime. The crimes were so great that they could never be forgiven, and they must atone for them by following the commands of the order. Thus, the siblings walked while talking about what their master said about the great hero who could free them from their cruel fate. Daryl placed his hand on the girl's head as she got annoyed. "Don't do that," she told him, but the older brother just smiled at her. "It was all a lie," he said. "Freedom obtained through begging is useless to us both." Ian reflected that Daryl was right. These siblings would never be saved. God and the Order would never forgive them, and was a miserable fate. He turned around, thinking he was the biggest hypocrite. He remembered when he said that even if someone prayed to God, it would only bring chaos, and he wondered if he even had the right to get angry at the hypocrisy of others. So he pleaded for the necklace to release them from their fate, because when a hero appears who can rewrite history, the light will come. If what he said before is true, then clearly someone like the Paladin would be the hero her master spoke of. But she believed her brother was right this time because he was an idiot, and their master's words were always right. However, a light surrounds the girl, causing the necklace to glow with golden light. She asks, "Why is this happening all of a sudden? That shouldn't be possible." Ewan is amazed to learn that the siblings are half-demons. Eden confirms it, leaving his disciple speechless. Thinking about everything he had been through, each person has different thoughts. As time passes on the day of the mission, the group arrives at the ruin. Eden thinks this was a secret entrance only he knows about. He tells the group to take a moment before preparing to go in. The members agree, but Sign calls out to the Paladin. Eden turns and sees the golden light. Is that an ancient artifact? He asks. An artifact capable of guiding its bearer through the ruins? And if it isn't the Pope's, that would be impossible, he continues, because the Order not only used and discarded the siblings, but was also draining them dry. Stay says, "When I looked at the necklace, it seemed like the Paladin was its true owner." She asked him to accept it. Eden wonders, is she giving it to him? The little girl says, "My master spoke of a hero who could rewrite history." The jewel would respond to him. It could also free someone from their sins and faith. Her master told her to give the necklace to the hero after that. But freedom isn't something to beg for. So since he seemed to be the owner, she would give it to him. Since last night, she met Sir Paladin and the necklace began to shine. Eden wondered if it had really been last night. She wondered if it had happened in that very moment and if it had responded to his compassion for the siblings. That must be why it glowed like that, a truly impressive magic. Daryl wasn't the type to give the necklace away willingly. Besides, Sin was a pure child, and the chance of him feeling compassion for her was much greater, so he must have used some spell to hide the signs of identity. Now it said it would guide the Paladin to the ruins where the sacred relic was. If they truly tried, one day God would forgive them. Ian reflected that Kadak probably wanted to use this to manipulate the hero. The girl said that at this rate, there would be no salvation. The Paladin wondered if she would still think that way if she knew she was a half-breed. Sai tried to respond when he took the necklace, but Eden had one condition. She told that he would repay her for doing this. She also told everyone to listen carefully because they would be entering through a secret passage they didn't know. To stop the summoning ritual, the ritual proceeds by placing the catalyst and the sacrifice in specific locations and connecting those points using enchantments. Then, souls are offered to the devil. Once he consumes all the souls, the summoning will begin. So, they must infiltrate and neutralize the catalyst. Not long ago, a scouting team drew the transfer circle at the location he indicated earlier. They will move in groups using scrolls. Once the mission is complete, everyone must meet at the rendezvous point, which is the bottom of the altar on the 3rd base level. The group says they understand. Then, a summoning circle appears beneath them as the young man says, "I'm going," wishing that everyone returns safely. On the 2nd basement level of the Grand Tomb, Eden thinks honestly that the repugnant atmosphere is everywhere and unbearable. 2 people walk beside him and say they don't recognize his face. "What group are you from?" they ask. Eden looks at them with irritation, killing them without remorse. They were just weaklings of no importance, he claims. Eden's mission is to free the imprisoned souls using holy water. The goal is to place the sacrifice in order to weaken the summoned demon. On the 1st basement level of the Great Tomb, there was Yuan. The boy wondered why he was assigned to a place like this, while cultists asked who they were and where they came from. Daryl asked, would the recruit really be able to complete the mission in that state? The knight retorted, our team should go first. Yet, the hunter considered him a spectacle. Yuan complained about being seen that way, thinking about how this half-demon stayed quiet in front of Lord Eden. They needed to calm down. Before, he would have run away, but not anymore. Even if he was a half-demon, Eden chose him. There must be a reason for that. So he yelled, we will avoid unnecessary fights at all costs. I asked for your cooperation. The cultist said, you look like demon hunters. Why are you here? But Yuan charged at them, using an aerial strike with his sword, anchoring himself into the base of the mountain. A cultist was shocked and asked, what's he planning? Yuan told Daryl, throw the smoke grenade. Daryl's mission was to use his special speed and stealth skills to support Yuan. The cultists wondered what was happening. while the hunter joked about them squirming, but the knight told him, use this chance to pull them up. Daryl jokes that he didn't even need to say it. He was going to do that once the smoke cleared. Yuan shouts, I see the catalyst. I'll deal with it as soon as I land. That's my mission, to use holy water to destroy as many scattered catalysts as possible. Daryl sighs, thinking everything's been done. The knight seemed weak, but he admits he's not bad. He has the guts to jump in without hesitation. You only tried it after watching someone else, Daryl jokes. The hunter admits, I thought it would be tough at first. He hands over the holy water, asking, why have you do it? Daryl refuses. Only someone from the order should use it. He says, scared. They decide to hurry, silently criticizing themselves. On the third basement level of the Great Tomb, Sebastian, Bandel, and Sign's group stand, having found the altar. But it looks like the ritual is about to begin soon. The priest complains too many children were sacrificed before adding, I'll inform everyone of the location immediately. My mission is to use the scroll to do so. Sebastian pleads, my mission is to protect the two of them. Bandel begins using the scroll with his magic. Yuan runs in, telling Daryl they got a communication. They should leave the weak ones behind and regroup now. While a hunter asks for the location, Eden replies, we found the altar, but there's something strange, a feeling that means it's finally begun. Finally, the most important mission, signs to destroy the summoning seal. For that, once the seal forms, everyone will gather first and then unite with the seal breaker. Sistine announces the seal has started to appear. She tells Eden to take care of it, but the girl is in shock. She asks, wait a moment, the method to destroy it is different from what I was told. It's such a complex and massive summoning ritual. It's still beyond my abilities to undo it. A strong wind blows against the group, leaving the three of them frightened as something begins to emerge from within the strange seal. Daryl approaches and asks about the seal, but Syme replies, I can't do it. I need the Paladin's holy power. Even if it's possible, she continues, a ritual will be completed before I can dismantle the seal. Eden appears and says, it doesn't matter if it's summoned. The Manticore requires 2 sacrifices in total, one before and one after the summoning. And that is why they freed the souls of the heroes from the tomb. They have replaced the summoning ritual with a weaker member of the dark cult and destroyed the catalyst. If everything went according to plan, the creature would only appear in incomplete form. And if they could save the final offering it required, they would have a strong chance to prevail. He ordered Bandel and Sane, hold your positions. Yuan and Sistine provide cover. Daryl, you're with me. Yuan agreed, though the others remained doubtful. Celestine said, the seal hasn't been broken yet, but Eden denied it. We will not retreat. Don't worry, even if it's summoned, we can still control the situation. He told Bandel, protect the children from the creature, and signaled Sane to use her magic to assist the ritual. We'll draw it here and defeat it. The young woman exclaimed, summoning it is absurd. But the paladin replied, it will be fine. Trust me, and the necklace your master once acknowledged. Sane fell silent, while Eden moved forward with Daryl toward the seal. The young man tightened his grip on his sword. Daryl quietly remarked, the sacred power is very strong, while Eden thought science, purity, and talent all are valuable. But when it comes to Daryl, he wasn't sure. His situation was unfortunate, but if he let emotions take over, it could ruin the entire plan. One mistake was more than enough. Remembering a woman with golden hair and blue eyes, he realized that in moments of judging evil, one must set aside emotional attachment. For that reason, if they wanted to free the siblings from the Order, they needed a justification for why Daryl was also necessary, even if it was a form of self-justification. He said even the lower demons were sensing the scent and approaching, then slashed with his sword, calling them vermin, slicing off several demon heads. Finally, he called for Daryl, adding, if you want to remain by your sister's side, you must prove your worth. The hunter thought that if Daryl couldn't prove it, he might end up like those demons. With a smile, he created several daggers, saying, Eden underestimated my power and calling him Paladin in the end. The cultists repeated the word Paladin and wondered how he knew they were there. They soon discovered the group's location. Yuan then alerted Celestine, saying her position had been exposed. Say shouted, everything is fine, and called out to the palace. Hold then. Because they succeeded, it looked like the summoning was about to happen. A demonic energy began to break the barrier. Eden gripped his sword tightly, shouting that he would destroy it along with the seal, pouring all his power into it, and was sucked into the hole. Yuan called out to Lord Eden, while Sin commented, the Paladin is truly incredible. Daryl joked that he was reckless, and that the knight's leap was something he had learned from him. Eden noticed something strange as he descended. The demon laughed at him, saying his effort was in vain, and that the summoning was a success. But Eden called out to everyone as he approached, driving his sword into the creature's eye. They had all been waiting for that moment, and thus he used his divine power. The demon screamed, calling them miserable humans, and shouted for the sacrifice. Meanwhile, Sin decided that she would protect the children. Eden reflected that the demon had been summoned incompletely, greatly weakened. The demon murmured, asking where its sacrifice was. If the sacrifice is hidden by sacred power, we just need to capture it, it said. Daryl stopped attacking, saying he couldn't reach him because the demon was ascending into the sky, rising from the ground, while Eden still had his sword buried in the demon. The Paladin tells Daryl to go with him, and the hunter grabs the demon's foot. Eden shouts to the group members, the two of us will handle it. Take the children and escape. The remaining 4 agree with his command. Thus, the demon rises into the sky. Eden is thrown off by the force of the wind. He then asks Daryl to bind him with the chains. Daryl agrees to his student's request and throws them, catching him and holding on to the dragon's tail. Eden explains, I'm going to try to sever the demon's spinal cord. Can you lift me high toward the spine? Daryl responds, yes, I've done something similar before. The Paladin nods. I'll count to 3, he says. 1, 2, 3. Eden is launched upward and strikes the demon's spine with one blow, but he realizes it was too shallow due to the tough skin. It would be difficult to hit that spine with a regular iron sword, and he curses because, due to the infiltration, he can get the sacred sword. The demon becomes enraged. How dare such insignificant beings challenge me? He roars. Did you think I would just stand here? I'll tear these useless humans apart. He charges through the sky, completely changing direction, yelling, I need many sacrifices. Daryl tells Eden to look. There's a city in the direction the creature is headed, and it seems he's moving toward the city. Eden wonders if it's because of the sacrifices, questioning if the creature's intelligence was really that high before. If it continues like this, hell will spread through the city. He has to stop it, no matter what. If it continues like this, everyone in the city will lose their lives, he says, his voice firm. He orders Daryl to cut off the wings, but the hunter complains about the speed, saying they'd still crash into the city. Eden responds, we'll do everything possible to make it fall on the outskirts, minimize the damage. He orders the speed to be reduced as much as possible. In the meantime, he'll do everything he can to stop its breathing. I'm counting on you. The young man agrees, though the Paladin mentally complains about having to rely on trust. In the desert city of Sarangel, the residents watch in awe, wondering what that was as a massive white light approached. They question if it was the descent of God, just like they heard. But Eden shouts, move away. The demon is approaching, emitting a golden light from its mouth. The townspeople run, crying out for help, but they still wonder what that glow was. The demon calls Eden insolent for being inside its mouth, but the Paladin calls out to his partner, asking if he's ready. Daryl confirms while holding on to the demon's back, saying it took a bit longer because of the poison. But now everything is ready, he adds, throwing his daggers. Several parts of the demon are slashed, forcing the creature down to the ground. Only a golden glow emanates from the center. The people of Single ask, what was that? But an opening appears on the creature's arm, shining a blinding golden light. Eden simply cuts through it all with his sword, lifting it high after completing the job. It's finally over, he says. Explosions erupt in the tomb while Celestine and Yuan defeat lesser demons, slashing through the demons in their path. Vandal and Sin prepare their magic to support the group. But Celestine is surrounded by 3 demons, thinking they managed to escape from the collapsing tomb. However, the summoned demons were coming to a halt. Yuan reflects that Celestine's sword is getting slower and slower. Everyone, including him, is exhausted, wondering what they should do now. But a scream is heard from behind them as a golden light pierces the skies. Even approaches on horseback. Shouting for them to advance, Yuan gets excited at the sight of his lord. He thinks it isn't over yet because what matters is giving your all at the end. He even yells for them to destroy the filthy demons, wiping them out without leaving a trace behind. In Tegain's office in the Holy Kingdom of Archam, a messenger opens the door saying urgent news has arrived. The archbishop apologizes and asks for a moment, but someone in the chair tells him to feel at ease. Outside, the messenger explains everything, and the archbishop is in disbelief that Eden defeated the summoned creature, the great monster Manticore. Then he begins laughing, thinking that he only asked Eden to stop the summoning, and it was truly oppressive. The messenger says that afterward, Eden also eliminated all the cult's followers and the remaining ones at the site. Therefore, the Holy Order and the Sacred Council's direct enforcement force were sent there to receive the captured criminals. Tegan asks, what are they doing now? While Uriel begins to think, wondering if God would grant such immense power to someone who doesn't believe in him. Eden touches Yuan's shoulder and congratulates him on a job well done. But the guard says it wasn't enough. Yet his master tells him not to be humble. Turning to Celestine, the knight asked about the children. 6 lost their lives and 4 were poisoned by magic, he says. We've done everything possible to prevent further damage. But Celestine still feels guilty for failing. Eden disagrees. We saved many lives, he tells her. You shouldn't blame yourself. He reflects. The responsibility was mine. If I had stopped the summoning as Tegan ordered, the children would still be alive. Even if the summoning had occurred elsewhere, I have no right to judge human life. Whether it's God or not, it's the same name. Even so, the young man still feels guilty. When the Holy Order arrives, he says, you should handle the criminal's transfer. I'll return first, and I'm counting on you for the rest. But Celestine calls out to the Paladin. Eden turns to her. Don't worry about the siblings, he says, surprising both of them in a good way. The knight raises her sword, honoring Eden. Even if it was for a short time, she says, it was good to fight by your side. I always pray for your well-being. Eden raises a cross on his finger. We protect the weak and fulfill our oath, he says. We should lose our honorable and noble spirit. And asked if they intend to stay there, to which Bandel replies no. He plans to deliver the criminals and go to the Western Church. Eden says that wherever he goes, he should keep leading with hope, as he just did. He hopes that someday he'll be called Bishop Bandel, and that they'll meet again. On the way back, the Paladin reflects. Even though he defeated Manticore, he still carries a weight in his heart for the loss of the children in the process. In a game where developments change at every moment, the time will come when he'll need to make unknown choices. Instead of blaming himself, he must trust in his decision because no one can predict the outcome. Yet the responsibility for the lives lost is still his, as 6 more were added today. The horse stops, following them. Sim looks at the Paladin with admiration. She thinks that the hero mentioned by her master really does seem to be the Holy Knight in what he had said on that occasion. It seemed like the mission was well accomplished, but she couldn't understand what he was thinking. Darrow reflects that they're just half demons and nothing more than fleeting lives. Wondering if it's right to keep going like this, they should just run away. C complains that it hurts, but the older brother apologizes. Ewan stares at the two of them with no expression on his face, mocking Darrow for not fitting the mood. He asks, why aren't you getting worked up like you did with me? The hunter, however, wants to know why they're picking a fight. Eve interrupts the teasing, saying if the two siblings join the order, they would lose their lives. Daryl and SSC are left scared by this. The hunter pleads, at least let my sister go. The Paladin turns around, replying, I would help you live as humans. Daryl asks, are you serious? He wonders what the Paladin even means, thinking to himself that, aside from that, he's from the Order and they can't fully trust him. Eden says he's proven his skills enough. Besides, he owes us a debt. The hidden reason, though, is that he's a disciple of Kadak. The Paladin asks, isn't that reason enough to help you? He tells them to hide until he comes back to get them in the Holy Kingdom of Arcane, in Tigan's office. Ian responds, I'm here to see the archbishop. The mission was a failure. He reflects on the outcome, realizing it was a success, but he didn't follow orders. He wonders whether he'll receive praise, envy, or a reprimand. I need to adjust my attitude. Hoping that Tane is a perceptive superior, Tegain comments that in a short time, the heroic stories had already spread everywhere. Because of that, he lost his composure when forming a team and preparing for it. But that was the least of it. Laughing, he adds that the result seems to matter more than appearances or formality. He offers his congratulations for the good work and encouragement. Eden feels relieved. With this kind of attitude, he can act more freely. So he thanks him for speaking so positively about his independent decision. Tane says it's important to have flexibility and asks about the siblings. The Paladin replies that they are talented and he would keep an eye on them. The Archbishop agrees since that was his decision, but wants to know if the young man met the Inquisitor. Eden says that, based on the schedule, he doesn't think it was possible this time. Tane changes the subject. Even you're always so direct, so I'll be direct too, he says. He and the Inquisitor decided to work together and asked if Eden would like to help cut away the rotten parts of the Order. The Paladin replies that his duty is to eradicate demons, and he'll leave the heretics to the two of them. Tegain jokes about his solid determination while thinking about his desirable talent. He touches the young man's shoulder, saying he respects his decision. The Saint was looking for him, so it would be good to meet her before leaving. But Eden reflects that it might be difficult now. The first time, he only said what he had to and left. During the consecration, he only received the blessing. He simply ignored it, and so did the Saint. So he would leave it at that, because it's a mystery to understand a knight who doesn't believe in God. It may be hard to respond, so it's better to avoid saying that if not now, it will be complicated. Tan tells him not to worry because Uriel is there now, asking them to have a good talk while he steps out to handle some matters. Uriel comments that it's difficult to talk with the Paladin while Eden apologizes for the inconvenience caused. The Saint denies it, saying he always seems worried as if being pursued by something. Still, she senses discomfort coming from the young man, and if it's just an illusion, she apologizes, but Eden agrees that he was uncomfortable. Ariel tries to analyze the young man, thinking that might be the truth. She remembers people telling her all sorts of lies, and asks what the reason is while wondering if he's not lying just to get something. Eden reflects that it's because of Uriel's eye of the mind. The saint says it must be difficult to be with someone who makes him feel that way. But the paladin replies that it's not that he dislikes Uriel. She wonders what the reason for his discomfort is, if not that, and if he's referring to her. The paladin asks if she's finished speaking, but she says no. She has another question. She asks him to answer while looking into her eyes. Does he serve the sun? God checks her. Eden reflects that the moment arrives sooner than expected, and if it's Uriel, he can share a little. Clenching his gloved hand, he says no while thinking the conversation needs to happen. The paladin says he does not serve him, and the girl repeats how earlier he said he spread the teachings of God, thinking that was the only truth that day. Eden agrees because the teachings of Vachiger are correct. Eradicate evil, help the weak, and do good. Something he believes to be a universal principle. Uriel asked if it's not a contradiction to spread the word of a god while denying his existence. But the paladin asked if she doesn't believe in the values of philosophers and other great figures. Since acting according to someone's teachings is a manifestation of one's own thoughts, it's an idea that turns into action. The girl tries to summarize what he said, but Eden explains, "For me, the god Vacher is just a philosopher or a great figure. I likely share the same thoughts as the church." Uriel responds, "Everyone in the empire believes that God is omnipotent." Eden denies it, saying, "That's strange. The world is full of suffering, even with God present. Why does he only watch?" He looks at the girl and thinks she was reflecting on the same things he was, so he decides to leave after his conversation with the saint. Tigan asks, "Did you have a good conversation with Uriel?" The girl sighs, saying he rushed off again. On the drawbridge at the entrance to the holy kingdom of Arcane, Eden reflects that now Uriel will stay quiet for a while. She doesn't know it, but their previous conversation revealed something extraordinary about the hidden truth of Vachexar, a truth so important it could shake the very foundation of the church. Eden doesn't want to deal with it lightly, but in any case, it was good. In the game, Uriel destroyed herself because of doubt. With this conversation, he should feel more at peace. She was a necessary presence, and he truly wished he could tell her everything. But the player's knowledge is bound by a taboo that can only be revealed through Eden's own experiences. The identity of the demon the demonic church was trying to summon, the way to save Daryl, and seeing Uriel's insight. All of it would cause damage that could cost him his life. However, maybe due to the shift in the game's flow, dropping a few hints might be acceptable. Someone shouted that Eden was their old friend. It was the knight present at the ceremony. "You wanted greetings, my lord," he said. The knight explained that he had met the apprentice while passing by and that it was a pleasure to see Eden again. The young man agreed, remembering Tyrone from the north. "Tyrone, I apologize for my previous lack of manners," the knight said. "Eden, you and your disciples are impressive." As Eden reflected on his change in attitude, he grabbed his disciple's bag. "I was on my way north," he replied, "but I'll listen to your stories." The knight's expression grew serious. "Is that so?" he asked. "Then I must discourage it. This winter, beasts are descending in search of food. Villages have been evacuated, and so has the religious order. Right now, the north is the greatest danger." Eden replies that in times like this, someone must keep watch in case the beasts decide to invade imperial territory. He thinks about how the north is about to become hell. He had been rushing to explore the ruins, but ended up receiving an unexpected gift, a high-grade gem that retains magical heat, something useful for the ruins expedition. Yuan sneezes in the cold. Eden comments, "You handled the heat just fine, but this cold is hard to bear." The boy replies, "It's my first time dealing with cold. I grew up in the south." He then adds, "Now I understand why northerners get so excited when they talk about beautiful eyes." He asks, "Are you seeing that? In the middle of the snowy path, there's a cabin." Eden says, "We've reached the location marked on the map I gave to Daryl." But Yuan panics. "Lord, wait," he exclaims. In front of the cabin, Daryl is collapsed on the ground, unconscious, breathing heavily in the snow. An old man with a sword asks, "Who are you?" Eden is surprised. Yuan asks, "Did you leave Daryl in that state?" The old man responds, "I just want to know if you know the person lying on the ground." Eden senses a powerful pressure coming from the elder. Yuan asks Lord Eden to prepare for battle, but the young man dismounts, saying it's not necessary, leaving his apprentice stunned by the response. Eden approaches as a paladin. "Daryl is fine," he says, "and I was the one who sent the siblings here." The elder asks, "Was it you?" Daryl shouts, "I was waiting for you." Sin opens the door, wanting to know, has the paladin arrived? Yuan wonders what is happening there. In the cabin of the snowy mountains, the group gathers. The old man says the paladin's name is Eden, and his progress was so fast, it seemed unreal. Yuan asks for permission and inquires, who was that gentleman, the one Eden had forgotten to mention? The old man answers that was one of the master swordsmen of the continent, Gillenfener, but he's just a reclusive lord on the borders. Ewan questions, why did Daryl collapse just a little while ago? Sign explains it was his brother who lost a duel and ended up training that way. So, ever since they arrived here, it's become a routine. Gillen complains, I can barely do it. Kanek spoils the boy, questioning, what do wizards understand about these matters? Ian reflects, Joan was like him. A beacon of hope, he says, but I was useless. But those who inherited his swordsmanship have a great reputation. Gillen responds, they couldn't even be called students. They were clumsy. This man is an old friend of the great wizard Kadak and the guardian of the North. He is the wall that holds back the beasts, one of the monsters with the greatest combat strength. He slants his hand on the table and says, you probably didn't come all the way here just to chat. Why did you send the brothers to me? Ian thinks that he has finally reached the main point and responds, it was to save them. While I was in the Order, I needed a place to hide the two. Yilin comments, you're a different kind of sacred knight. You said you'd let them live as humans. Even explains the answer lies in an ancient site nearby. That's why I hid them in the old man's cabin near the ruins. Yilin laughs, it was bold, but not despicable. Even though you're not a bearer of the necklace, you're still somewhat extraordinary. But be careful with your arrogance. Even walks away. The brute complains about the cold. They are safe thanks to an ignition stone, but they must not lower their guard. Even the Empire struggles to deal with that place. Daryl says that they had a hard life up to that point and should not worry about the two. Sin agrees because she is worried about Yun. Her brother jokes that he must be trying as hard as he is. But Eden is focused on something, recalling Gil and telling him not to become arrogant in any way. The young man grits his teeth, thinking that it was true. He was weak, though he was growing rapidly. But considering that no one had completed the game, the difficulty was as high as if it were hell. Besides that, the ruin should not be easy. Remembering that he had thanked Gillen for the advice, the old man asks the paladin to leave his disciple behind because otherwise he would lose his life there. Isn't that one of your intentions when going there? The old man continues. The brothers are necessary and possess good abilities, but the disciple is inferior in comparison. He must have the potential to be a true disciple. Eden asks you to try hard as he leaves. Thus, he decides to depart with the group using the fragment that emanates in the sky. Eden thinks that he cannot settle or stop there. He must move forward toward his objectives and survive this hell. The golden light of the necklace shatters in the sky. Daryl comments that beyond that point, there was a dangerous frozen terrain called the Field of Eternal Snow. He says that the ignition stone was very conspicuous, making it dangerous. But Eden replies, we'd eventually encounter enemies at some point. It's riskier to be cold. Suddenly, a snowstorm hits the advancing group. Something moves toward them, leaving Eden feeling apprehensive. He takes the lead and says, they're demi-humans. Daryl assessed the situation. The hunter reflects on the spot where he saw the dagger's reaction, fragmenting as it collided with something and falling to the ground shortly afterward. The knife heads toward Eden, followed by a beast. The paladin reflects that the demi-human's weak point is at the nape and advances toward him, but the beast simply evades the strike. Eden notices the scratch on his armor and comments, this won't be an easy enemy. Thanks to the snowstorm, my vision is compromised. Sin says we can resolve this with the ignition crystal. Eden agrees with her, and the girl prepares a spell intending to last as long as possible. She then causes an explosion in the indicated area. A figure appears in front of the three. The beast approaches and says, you have a curious combination. A sacred knight and two creatures that exude a repulsive smell. Eden reflects that it is of the snow leopard race. She senses the demon's presence and knows they must eliminate her before she continues speaking. Daryl, focus on the attack, Eden orders. The paladin charges at the creature with full force. He drives his sword into the ground as she dodges. Daryl creeps behind, thinking the Lord has drawn her attention. He prepares to throw his daggers, striking the leopard in the back. The creature screams, those bastards were rushing the Reaper with their mischief. If that's what they want, I'll give it to them. She starts with Paladin. Daryl grows frightened about what might have happened to his lord, but then something falls toward the ground, heading into a dark cave. The leopard calls Daryl a coward hiding behind armor. I'll make you regret ever getting involved, she threatens. Eden suddenly wakes up, thinking about someone else who had said the same thing she did. She stays silent in place, experiencing strange memories from her past. The leopard mocks, you've surrendered to the overwhelming difference in power. But she starts bleeding from her mouth. Eden had pierced her heart with his sword. The leopard realizes she never stood a chance just as she is grabbed by the neck. Eden questions, how dare you utter the same words as that man? He adds, I will make sure you never open that mouth again, before breaking her neck against the ground. But she escapes the blow, charging toward the young man once more. How dare you underestimate my power? She asks, striking Eden on the side of his ribs. The paladin becomes enraged. Species like yours can't understand words, he says. It's all in vain. They only bring back repulsive memories. He rips off the snow leopard's tail and asks, when did that happen? Eden decides to send her to hell, thinking, for these monsters, mercy is a luxury. Daryl and Sin go after the Lord, finding only bloodstains on the ground. At the end of the path, Eden stands in front of the leopard's body. He asks, did you finally arrive? Just in time. He continues, remember, demi-humans hate humans. The elimination must be definitive. Misplaced compassion can ruin everything. Eden announces, we depart immediately. But Sign points out his bleeding. For even if he's a monster, that wound was serious, and she asked to treat him first, though he wasn't wrong about it. Now that the blizzard has weakened, they should return to Gillen's home and tend to their wounds. Eden refuses, saying it would heal quickly, showing that it was already scarred over. The girl and her brother are in disbelief and joke that he truly was chosen by God. Eden says it's a bit of that, while thinking it's thanks to high stats. But in any case, since the cold has calmed down, they need to move quickly. If they appear in a group, it'll be dangerous, for they might already be nearby. Dark questions. Aren't snow leopards a solitary species? The Paladin remains silent in response, but then says there are exceptions. It doesn't make sense that snow leopards came down this far. They are usually apex predators in the depths of the eternal tundra, and even during winter, they are not a species that migrates south. Eden looks to the sky thoughtfully, wondering if there was an anomaly up there, but for now, he must focus on what's in front of him. Sin looks at the quiet forest, but Eden places a hand on her head. The girl is confused and asks, why all of a sudden? The Paladin replies, there are many people who care about you, and in any situation, she must remember that unconditionally. Sin agrees with the Paladin's words, so they depart for time was running out and they must hurry, but he murmurs that the girl had fallen behind. The blizzard keeps falling. Someone follows the brute's trail, watching from afar, but Eden notices, wondering what kind of signal that was. The hooded figure starts moving. Then the Paladin thinks it's hail and that it had become sensitive. Daryl asks, why does it seem to be falling only on me? Eden replies, God didn't have much to do, making the demon cough up blood. He apologizes but says the Paladin says worrying things and even tells him to drop it and focus on their surroundings. Sin remains quiet and hesitant, thinking she felt disgusted by it. Suddenly, she feels sickened by herself, wondering how that happened, recalling the leopard's words about the siblings exuding a repulsive scent. She wonders if her brother was truly okay since the strange combination the feline mentioned. She wants to know if it was about their parents, her master, and her sin. She even remembers Eden's words that if they went to the Order, they would lose their lives. He thinks it can't be because of that sin that was mentioned. Eden reflects that she was awakening as they approached the ruins and Kadak's magic was dissipating. However, the girl needed to recognize her true nature to break free from her fate. Now, Sai must feel like the entire gnome world was collapsing in front of her. Daryl, he shouts, trying to help his sister, but Eden stops him. They're too close to the ruins, she says, her voice sharp. She's becoming aware. If we stay any longer, everyone will be in danger. You must take her. Carry her if you have to. The hooded person watches the group from afar, remaining silent. Then, with a flash of blue light, they vanish from the scene. Eden feels something strange at his feet, a vibration pulsing beneath them. He wonders if this could be coming from a group of demi-humans. He curses under his breath. How close they were. Ignore them, Eden orders. Run toward the light. Daryl hesitates, his voice filled with worry. Sign's condition is serious. Eden's eyes widen in shock. She had a seizure. He had no time to process it before the girl's skin started to grow scales. She cried out in pain, clutching her chest. The group of demi-humans advances and Eden reflects on how close they were to the danger of something else was approaching too. He furrows his brow, wondering what could be worse than the lurds. Then the hooded figure jumps high into the air, landing behind the snow leopards with unnatural speed. Eden feels a pressure building. It was not something ordinary and could be revealed, but the being simply emanates its presence behind the beasts. He walks among the creatures. Eden thinks it's a damn mess because the snow leaper pack was already dangerous, and now they'd have to deal with this monster too. He wonders what they should do, while the creature asks everyone to calm down, since now was not the time for this. Eden reflects that he didn't seem like a member of the snow leopard tribe. Daryl asks if they should retreat, but the Paladin says no, as he would observe. The leopards complain about fleeing from a human, but the man explains that unlike the time when humans used to hunt demi-humans, now only one member was lost. Besides that, he doesn't seem easy to deal with. And although the situation is favorable, they suffered great damage. They ask if the man would waste energy unnecessarily at such an important time. One leopard simply sighs at him, saying he was lucky. Eden reflects that he had no chance since this shift happened at the upper part of the field of eternal snow. He wants to learn more about it before the man leaves, but for now, he has no choice but to let him go. The beast says they must choose practical results over unnecessary battles, because he needs to prepare for the future, and it's a farewell for those humans. Daryl asks, who was that guy exactly? Eden replies, he's someone who leads the Leopard clan. In the region of the perpetual snow mountain, many tribes live, but they have different gods and ideologies. Even among demi-humans, it's normal for different tribes to see each other as enemies. However, there are times when a Beast King arises to unite the tribes through strength. The demi-humans gather under the Beast King and can display incredible power. From what I'm seeing, a war may be about to break out, especially when reflecting on how humans hunted and enslaved demi-humans. The hatred is understandable, but the timing isn't right. The birth of the Beast King happens much later in the game. Our side's preparation was insufficient because the difficulty of the Beast King is extremely high, so high that most players quit the game at that stage. Daryl asks, was that guy the Beast King? Eden answers, I'll investigate later, but we must enter the ruin now. They move toward the golden light, speaking to Elohim. Your master commands the use of sacred power. Revealing the entrance by breaking the seal of the ruin, Daryl covers his face to avoid being blinded by the light. A beautiful staircase appears before them. A lock with 8 symbols stands in front of Eden. He places a gem in its center, and a room materializes before him. Suddenly, a voice yells, who dares to profane the palace of the great hero, the ruins of eternal ice in the sanctuary that hides the great hero Arkin? Daryl replies, this is the place. Eden confirms, we've arrived, and then warns everyone, don't let your guard down. The great hero led the demi-human war to victory. Eden thinks, is he the one chosen by the necklace? He's young, seems qualified. Wanting to know his name, Eden introduces himself. He wonders if it might seem presumptuous. Arden responds, you're being rude. I don't care about that. He continues, people call me a great hero, but I was more of a butcher. The Paladin, eager for a challenge, says, words aren't necessary. The hero, however, suggests it must be about the artifact. He looks at Eden and asks, did you bring a half-demon out of pity? If so, it would be pointless. Eden replies, think whatever you want, because he's sure they'll succeed, and Arden questions why he brought the others. The Paladin had promised to cleanse the black blood and give the girl a human life, just like the hero once did for her. Arden snaps his fingers, calling the bold boy, creating a battlefield of sand, and summoning hundreds of demons before them. Let the trial begin, Arden says. Remember, defeat here is tied to real life. Wondering why he was in a place like that, Eden realizes that if he wants to live, he must fight and save the girl to win the artifact. Crosses begin to rise from the ground. Daryl asks, how dare the hero touch sign, even while being a great hero? But Eden tells him, don't get emotional. Focus on the battle. If we win, we'll obtain an artifact that will change both your and Sai's fate. He reflects that when he placed the jewel on the plaque, he saw information related to the artifact, so that restriction had been lifted. With that knowledge, they were ready to fight with all their strength. Daryl begins to transform, scales covering his skin as he becomes a half-blooded demonic beast. Eden reflects that the Proclaimer of Destruction reacts to demonic blood mixed with the siblings, and now he doesn't have to worry as much. Because if not for Sign, he would have had to endure that place for another 5 years. But now, he managed to reduce the time spent. The girl cries while the Paladin charges forward. His skill boosts his stats even more, and Eden reflects that it was time to settle this debt. The urge to destroy overflowed, and he felt like he could devour them all, slicing through every demon in his path. Severing the monsters' heads, Eden grins madly as he does it. Arden watches everything from atop a rock. The Paladin charges at the demon using his divine power, but the hero only thinks to himself that he realized Eden was impressive, but also terrifying. And as he wields his sword, he becomes faster and more precise. Instead of tiring, he grows stronger by the minute, even enjoying it. Back then, he had been powerless, wondering where someone like this had come from. Eden comments that even ordinary enemies are fun to defeat, and thanks to that, his stats were improving significantly. Even his partner was doing well, and it was time for that thing to appear. Then the ground begins to shake, splitting open a chasm beneath Eden. He says it finally showed up. Arn stares silently. While hundreds of mouths emerged from the ground, Eden shielded himself with divine power, saying, this is a true challenge, worthy of being called a trial. The great hero Arnan was someone who had always achieved victory in the demon war. However, the demons captured Ardan's beloved to try to subjugate him. But of course, the man tried to save her because his love was a half-demon. No one came to her rescue, and he fought alone. In the end, Ardan was defeated and his beloved lost her life. Filled with resentment, he imprisoned Brittany, the demon, inside barriers along with his own thoughts. After that, he followed his beloved, meeting a miserable end. But in truth, Ardan's power was to seal a portion of real space-time. It was a one-time ability that traded his life. That's why all those demons on the battlefield were real. Ardan said it was fair and that it was just a taste. He wondered how long the boy could last. He should give it his best. Eden replied, "Come on already. I'm tired of hunting small prey now that my power has grown so much." He then added, "It's starting to get fun facing Brittany, the demon of appetite." Sin thought that it felt right. Because it had been like that for a long time, with unfamiliar looks of contempt, her older brother seemed strange. It was as if he had no choice but to go to the church, and all of it was because they were half demons, something created to induce despair. Daryl shouts, "Can you hear me, sign?" The girl cries because her brother was right. They couldn't change their fate. But her brother says, "You're wrong again. Eden said he could give us a human life. You need to regain your senses." The girl continues crying as she thinks. Eden climbs onto the serpent's forehead and says, "Daryl, you become a little eloquent." That monster, he explains, was the final test for the siblings. It was an ignorant demon that devoured others to regenerate infinitely. Because of this, it guards the altar and feeds the devil, making it someone difficult to deal with alone. But Eden continues, "If one of you can take care of Brittany, the other can destroy the altar." With that, they advance against the demon. One of Eden's arms is grabbed by a mouth, but he rips it free using his sword. Daryl asks, "If we just deal with that demon, will my sister be free?" Eden looks at him with a smile. "How long are you going to keep confirming things?" Then he charges at the creature with his sword and knocks its mouth to the ground. Eden says the feeling of cutting was immensely unpleasant. But the mouth begins to move on the ground, with others emerging as he notices that he tried to cut it with divine power. It was no use. So he warns direct, "I'm going to throw you toward the altar. You should clear the surroundings." The serpent roars loudly. Eden charges into the demon's mouth, saying, "I'm going to use its regenerative power against it. I'll absorb it and stay deep within its body. Its tremendous regenerative power will serve as an anchor for me." Therefore, he could remove it from the altar just by throwing it outside. Inside the belly, Eden tries to orient himself. He grabs another weapon and says, "This would be fitting." Then he strikes the inner walls of the creature's stomach. "It's good," he says. "I managed to capture it properly." He throws it far from the altar, tearing through the creature's entire wall and piercing it with his rescue rope. Eden pulls himself out using the rope. Daryl strikes the creature and says, "I'll help my friend." The paladin pulls the rope with all of his strength, groaning in pain as he tries, but the mouths begin to emerge, becoming an extremely tight mouth. Fast. Eden says he'll stop it, so Daryl should take care of the altar. And so, of the serpent, it says it's moving, for they must take this attack from its body. The altar begins to break, and even the seal of that world is damaged. The serpent lifts its head while the mouths go into agony, self-destructing. In that very moment, Eden tells him to save Sign and get out of there. While thinking he can't waste his last chance to gain experience, Aran watches it all from above. Seeing Eden cut down every remaining mouth in the area, he thinks that if it doesn't have enough food, the demon would eat its own body. And that's exactly what it begins to do, self-destructing while the young man gains massive experience from the demon's fall. The hero approaches him, saying that by identifying all of Brittany's weaknesses at once and wondering how long he can endure this demonic barrier, since even he failed this time. But he was breaking free from the curse created by his madness and was finally liberated. However, Eden calls for his attention, telling him to bring that to him. In Jill's snowing mountain cabin, Ewan collapses to the ground again. Jillian says there's a long road ahead, and he must practice if he wants to be useful. While the boy wonders why he was like this, clenching his hand into the snow and questioning why it was so hard, someone says he was working hard for nothing. Ewan steps back, wondering if someone else was there, and questions who the hooded figure is. But the figure calls him Ewan Gillen's disciple, asking to personally show him how he should move, then points a sword at the boy. Ewan continues training alongside Ken. The old man asked if he had an epiphany about something yesterday, because his skills had improved. He wonders if it was because Ewan fell into the snow and was thinking about that now. Ewan tries to dodge the question, saying he didn't really understand it. It felt like someone had told him, but if it had been a dream, he asked if Giant has disciples living nearby. The old man denies it, saying Ewan may have received enlightenment through his dream. The boy reflects that it was too vivid to be just a dream, but his master decides to increase the intensity of the training based on his growth. In the ruins of the ancient blizzard inside the sanctuary, dedicated to the great hero Aran, Eden says he's going to resolve the demonic blood flowing through the siblings' bodies, because it is said that due to their ancestors' sins, they must be punished. Future generations would be wounded, but Eden says that was all. He asks why Daryl is making it so complicated since the sins had already been forgiven and the siblings were now eligible. Daryl thinks that Eden is a noble hero dedicated to God. He remembers speaking poorly of the novice paladin before, wondering where on earth one is supposed to trust and entrust their life to him. After all, his abilities were beyond the rumors, and since they were paladins, there was no way to leave them alone. However, that last part, He wonders if now it's all useless because Eden is not a typical paladin. He's never seen him pray before. In fact, Eden speaks more blasphemies than anything lately, and he's even been good half-demons like Daryl. But Eden draws the older one's attention, telling him not to stand around and to give a bit of his blood. Daryl touches his finger to the artifacts leaf. Now it's Cyan's turn, he says, and she shouldn't put in too much. It's not as scary as it seems. Smiling at his sister from the corner of his mouth, Eden says that was the end of the ritual. Then he releases the paper into the air. It begins turning into several letters swirling around Daryl's body. Along with his sister, who also becomes covered in letters, Eden simply watches it all as the demonic energy leaves the bodies of the two. He says that God has officially forgiven them and let it pass. Now they would prove their innocence to the church, congratulating them for now being considered human. Daryl begins to tremble and Sin does the same, crying. The girl says she thought she knew everything, but they were half-demons. Their master had abandoned them, and even her older brother had hidden his abilities. Yet a holy knight who hates demons saved them, and they could never repay such kindness. Feeling truly grateful, he even asked the little girl to calm down, and she agrees. But it wasn't an order from the man. He feels a bit embarrassed. He touches the girl's head and says that, in the first place, due to scientific talent, this decision left him with no other choice. But it's okay to make exceptions sometimes. Daryl calls out Eden's name, kneeling and thanking him deeply. Eden asked him not to do that because it's uncomfortable. However, the young man says he's not an animal who can make distinctions and doesn't know about God because he was never taught. But he knows he must repay a favor. So he will dedicate his entire life to his Lord, asking Eden to accept it. The young man thinks it's unexpected and wonders what he should do, since as a holy knight, he has the authority to grant honors. So he grabs the knife, telling Daryl to leave that part to him, because he has to admit that a formal denomination won't be easy to accept. The hunter gets excited, saying it would be completely inappropriate, but he still has a lot of potential. He's heard many things about a genius anyway, so he'll grow tremendously. Eden tells him to work hard, and the young man celebrates, thanking him. But he asks Eden not to think she's in his debt because he's the one who owes her. Therefore, she must decide for herself. She shouts that her teacher said she'd become an archmage in the future, and she's not bragging at all. Eden offers a recommendation to the Magic Academy. The girl refuses because her master said they had nothing to teach there. She also wants to follow the Paladin. Eden thinks that with this level of talent, it would be a great help if they worked together. So he turns around, saying they would do just that. Noticing something strange in Arhan, the young man asks, "What are you doing?" And the hero replies, "If I had succeeded, I might be laughing with my beloved the same way." However, the artifact had originally been obtained through blood, sweat, and tears for her. Yet Eden disagrees. "I wasn't asking," he says, and it wasn't just idle talk. They were also discussing going back to rest. Arhan speaks up. "I wasn't assigned the task of delivering this. Eden's audacity reaches the heavens, even if he passed just one trial." Eden responds, "Thanks to that, my beloved and I can be together. You should be happy for us." The hero mocks him. "That's ridiculous. You've never even been in love." This makes Eden tremble. The young man walks past the hero and Arhan teases him. "Already missing him, huh?" But now there's all the hatred that would consume everything before his heart. For that reason alone, Arhan adds, "You must have something to do as well." Then Arhan snaps his fingers. Enough talking here, he commands. A spear and a chest appear, emanating an aura. The Gargantua sword made from the bones of the ancient king of Baxo was one of the great artifacts. It allowed the summoning of any era anywhere. It was far too precious to give to someone unrefined like him. So he gives it to the siblings. He even reflects that the spear was a fine treasure, but there was something good inside that jewel box too. The box emits a golden glow when opened, revealing an egg inside. Arden jokes, the Paladin is good at recognizing valuable things because this is a divine egg. It could hatch a unicorn, or a celestial horse, a Pegasus that soars through the skies. It should crack once it surpasses the order and releases the seal. Eden reflects, just like Arden said, usually, this divine beast egg hatches a unicorn or celestial horse, but there's only a small chance that something like that will be born when the egg cracks. Outside the ruin, Jill greets the young man for returning alongside a strange guy. Unable to identify the animal that came from the egg, he says, "I've lived a long life, but I never thought the day would come when I'd be surprised by someone else's accomplishments." He wonders what exactly happened in the ruins with the horned Pegasus now accompanying Eden. A few hours earlier, the egg had cracked and out came an alicorn, the strongest mystical creature without any known weaknesses. The unicorn purifies demonic energy, but only when following virgins, Arden said. While the Pegasus can fly, it consumes a lot of divine power. But the alicorn is a mutant that combines both their strengths. It can purify demonic energy and fly without any restriction. Arden glanced at Daryl. Is the young man truly chosen by the gods? Daryl approached the creature, eyes wide. It's a fascinating being, he said, reaching out. May I pet it? But the alicorn bit him, making his hand bleed. Aryan shook his head. No one should touch a magical creature, except for its master. Daryl winced, irritation flashing in his eyes. That was harsh, he muttered. Has the weak had his brain destroyed after 200 years? Aryan retorted, You've never read the scriptures. Heathen, standing off to the side, raised a hand. Enough, he said, his tone firm. I have a request. Could I ask for one more favor from you, Arhan? I want that which the hero possesses. Arhan narrowed his eyes. How much do you know? It's a taboo to reveal it. Eden met his gaze without flinching. If you doubt me, I'll prove it's real. Do you swear by Vicheka? Eden's refusal was swift. I don't swear. Aryan was taken aback. It seems you know something, he murmured. The paladin spoke with a hint of resignation. It's a worthless item to the hero now. Aryan's expression darkened. It's not something to be given as a gift. So Eden asks what he wants in return. He tosses something into the paladin's hand, which he catches easily. He hands him a metal ore, saying, Once you reach your goal, don't forget about me. Eden asks, Is that all? Arn simply says, I was curious about your potential. The paladin reflects on the item, realizing it could change the flow of the future. He hadn't expected to receive such a gift. Thank you for this, he says. He walks toward the portal, adding, That's enough. The Groot should leave now. Besides that, Sin would become a great mage in the future. When she reaches that level, she should construct a body to contain her consciousness. He might lend her his strength if she needs it. At home, Jillian prepares bread and soup for the guest. Eden says, I had a good experience in the ruins. Sign jokes, Yon still looks unconscious. Jillian responds, I did the same as Eden. He's truly talented. Sign teases, grandfather is the best. The old man smiles, with strong determination, I taught him even more. Eden agrees, Yon seemed to have learned a lot, but he has something urgent to ask the old man. On the way to the room, he encounters a group of snowy parts. It's an eternal field of snow, but it's currently nearby. He asks the old man to escape that dangerous situation. Gillen questions whether the snow leopards truly left their habitat. Eden, he says, it seemed that a stronger entity was taking over the deeper areas. The snow leopards were ordered to return by just one man. He believes this man is the Beast King. Gillen is left in disbelief because even his speculation suggests that nothing involving a Beast King should be ignored. So, he says, I'll report it separately to the Order, and the Elder must be cautious about all this. Gillen understands. Time passes as they talk, and the siblings notice the atmosphere has become much heavier, but they finally notice that their alicorn has awakened. The creature moves its head gracefully, opening its eyes and becoming lively. Gillen jokes, it really does seem full of energy. But Daryl complains, it's temperamental since my hand still hurts. The Elder calls him a fool for touching a mythical beast. He asks, do you have anything to feed the creature? It eats demonic energy and demon corpses. Daryl stands up excitedly, saying, leave it to me. I'm a demon hunter, after all. I've collected many remains to sell. Excited the unicorn, though that was far from useless, was actually very valuable. The unicorn charges toward the food, leaving Daryl unconscious for placing such things on the table while eating. Sin asks, did the paladin give a name to the alicorn? He denies it, wondering if the little girl wants to choose a name. She gets excited. Can I really do that? Eden confirms, and she suggests, yup. Eden asks, is it an abbreviation? Gillen explains it symbolizes nobility in the runic language. The girl agrees. It means something like pure white. The paladin repeats the unicorn's name. From now on, your name is Yup. Gillen mentions that the information he obtained today would be useful for Yup. In the desert region, particularly at the Empire's borders, there's a demon infestation. It's a place that turned into a human farm. An idiot named Tyrone tried to exterminate them, but lost all his troops and ran away. He calls Eden by name, asking, would you like to go there? Eden tells Yup, we're going to have a feast. Then the group begins moving through the snowy mountains, arriving in the desert region. In the Viscount's territory, soldiers pray for God to watch over them. But then, a demonic laugh echoes through the air. A group of demons is chasing the two men. One of the men, breathless, asks, how did they already find us? The demons taunt them, did you think you could win with such running skills? Is there anything to eat here, or should we skin you alive in front of everyone? Ripping off your limbs also sounds fun. The humans beg for mercy, but the demon sneers, that's not right. Humans hate pain more than death, so I'll make you beg to be sent to hell. He then beheads both men. Suddenly, a golden light strikes the ground and Eden appears riding his horse. The demons recognize him. Another paladin, they mutter under their breath. Eden, disgusted, says, I finally found you. He orders, yawn, Daryl, kill them all without exception. The demon hunter traps one demon with his key cane, while Yoan charges in. With a swift motion, he cuts off the demon's head. The remaining demons, desperate, think only of escape, but Eden is faster. He grabs one demon by the neck and asks, "What are you doing?" Humans hate pain more than death, don't they? He starts to press into the demon's skin, smirking. I wonder how demons feel about that. You should experience it at least once. And whether he shouldn't be the one kneeling and begging. Now, the demons lie lifeless on the ground. Eden stands in front of one who is kneeling. He then asks, were the two humans from the village centuries who came to ask for help? They confirm. The paladin approaches the demon and says, it's your turn now. He wants to know the name of his master, but the demon replies, there's a taboo about that. Eden repeats the word taboo, wondering if the demon is trying to force that idea onto others. However, one of the guards shouts to the paladin. The leader commanding the village is a vampire named Brun. The demon grows angry, calling him a bastard. How could you be so insolent? He demands. But Eden becomes even more furious. Don't you know how to shut up? He snaps. You need to spill all the information about your lord's castle. Yuan raises his hand. Wait, he says. I've learned interrogation techniques from the Inquisitor. May I handle this? Eden looks at him unsure. Are you sure? He asks. The young man nods. Eden hesitates, eyeing his innocent face, but eventually says, all right, go ahead. Yuan calls Daryl to come along. The demon hunter grabs one of the monsters by the neck and says, let's see what an ability is capable of. Yuan says there are no ranks for new recruits, and Daryl agrees. Eden turns to the soldiers and asks, have you encountered a pure blood? The guard replies, yes. I see him every day, but he appears in different forms each time. Sometimes as a woman, sometimes as a man. Occasionally, he transforms into a great bat that flies around the city. Eden frowns. That's strange. Pure blood shouldn't be able to enter the continent with the barrier in place. He pauses, thinking. Maybe he's not a pure blood, but a demon whose power has become equivalent to one after centuries of feeding on human blood. Eden wonders aloud about this new demon, one capable of creating vampire servants and spreading its power across the continent, making it more dangerous. He mutters under his breath, Tyrone is a fool for not reporting it and just running away. Eden looks at the guard again. What's the current situation? The guard responds, there are dozens of vampires, all controlled by the pure blood. Recently, they've begun capturing and imprisoning residents. Many people are suffering, being forced to reproduce, having their blood drained, and being eaten. Eden shakes his head. So, they weren't running far. They were seeking help from the church. The guard nods and Eden agrees. I've already seen enough. He turns to the soldiers. You don't need to worry anymore. And one of the guards says that a paladin recently visited there. Along with a large group, they were completely defeated. Eden says he already knows, so they shouldn't be concerned. Yuan approaches, saying he's ready since the demon had spit out all the information. Daryl looks shaken by what he saw. Yuan says he kept him alive for now and asks what they should do. But Eden cuts off the demon's head since they no longer need him. He reminds them both that they're not just demons. They were once human and by choice drank blood and abandoned their humanity. They committed horrible sins of their own free will. So salvation and purification were impossible. He asked if Yuan found a secret infiltration route, and the boy confirms, saying they have a tunnel prepared for emergencies. They can use it to spy on what's happening there. Eden praises him for a job well done and for learning so quickly. Yuan says it's his duty, and Daryl jokes that he didn't expect him to imitate his lord. It's hilarious. Eden reflects on how close they've grown to each other. Then Daryl asks what they should do. The paladin says they'll block the escape routes with a barrier and deal with all the demons at once. But both turn when their attention is called, as Sign approaches on horseback with Yup. Eden says, the girl has finally arrived. We need her barriers, but I'll explain more on the way. The little girl asks, leave it to me. Eden orders the guards, alert us when the demon appears. They understand and nod. Ute climbs onto the paladin's shoulder, and the paladin praises him for doing well. You'll eat until you're full soon, he says. A blue light emanates from the area. At the Viscount's estate inside the mutant village, demons approach, complaining that the lazy humans move too slowly. They march in a line outside the house. The people accept that God has truly abandoned them. Two people hide in the darkness of the house. Ewan asks, will all those people have their blood drained? Daryl adds, some even lost their lives here. Sane says it's an unforgettable act. Eden agrees, his blood boiling. We'll begin the infiltration mission. A guard approaches and says, our leader will appear once everyone is inside. Eden asks him, notify us when he shows himself. They step into the wooden house and the door shuts behind them. Inside the house, people wait, but a demon tells everyone to shut their mouths. Eden clenches his fist tightly, grinding his teeth, but another demon orders everyone to prepare for a head count. The paladin whispers, it didn't seem like that man. The guard replies, the boss should appear soon. A person in front of Eden is told to step forward. The demon yanks his hair, and the man begs to be spared. The creature complains, when humans are ordered out, they should obey their masters. How dare mere prey resist? The demon kicks him in the head, knocking the man out. The demons call the people insolent, claiming they need to be beaten to regain awareness of what's happening. They begin to strike the humans in the house. Eden becomes more enraged than ever by what he's witnessing. He thinks he should wait a little longer for the demon to appear. One of the demons approaches and asks, "Are there more of them?" Then one of the demons turns and says, "We need to extract 2 today." His partner complains, "The number has grown. Move aside so I can count again." Approaching the 2 in the count, the demon wonders, why is there such a large human? Eden curses him in his thoughts, telling him to go away and not bother them. But the demon touches his face, asking, "What about you?" Finally, one of the demons announces the arrival of Lord Brun. Everyone knelt to greet him. Eden spotted a demon and wondered if it was truly the one. Was it the same Brun he remembered? One of the guards shouted that it was, and Eden's expression darkened with determination. "I will defeat this demon," he declared. He then told all the townspeople to leave and ordered Scene to begin forming the barrier. The barrier spread across the entire Viscount's estate, collapsing parts of the outer structures and damaging sections of the town. A demon was overcome, and cries rang out amidst the rubble. "There's someone up there," people shouted. As Eden lowered his hood, his paladin armor came into view. People whispered, with that golden light, it could only be one person. One guard led the townsfolk along the escape route, urging them to hurry, while another demon fell to the ground weakly asking, "How dare you do this?" But it was stopped before it could act. Yuan explained that the vampires could not cross the barrier on the far side, and they needed to leave quickly. The guard guided the people beyond the protected zone. One villager asked, "Will the paladin be all right? The last time a paladin came, he left, and we suffered greatly." Another said, but the soldier replied, "Believe in him." Another blast of destruction falls behind the barrier. The guard and civilians turn to look. He says that Eden is different for the paladin who came and fled last time. The man thinks it's what you'd expect from Gargantua, since its power is immense. Just one swing with divine energy caused that much damage. Then he shouts, "Yondur, hold off the remaining enemies and protect Sign during the evacuation." Both agree to their leader's order. Meanwhile, Eden is thinking that the mutant bastard should come out since he's hiding. He tells him to show himself, spotting something strange in the sky. The winged monster is flying below the barrier, waiting to strike. But Bruni asks, "How dare you destroy my nest?" Because that filthy human should prepare himself. His blood will dissolve his body into nothing, he says, releasing something from his chest. Eden's eye glows gold as the energy approaches him, but the young man simply deflects it with his spear, calling it rude. He spins his spear, blocking the energy from getting closer. A trace of it hits his shoulder. He even wonders if his armor is melting. The bat charges toward him, saying he had underestimated him, but Eden prepares to resist with his spear as it gets closer. Laying a kick to the creature's chest, Eden grabs its foot and slams the demon into the ground, causing it to bleed from the damage. Eden grows more enraged, twisting the creature's head by repeatedly slamming it into the ground. Blood sprays upward. Brun groans in pain, his face completely disfigured. Yuan and Dural stand stunned by the sheer amount of damage inflicted. O drinks the creature's blood. Eden thinks to himself, "I must not stop until this body is reduced to dust." Mutants use hallucinations, transformations, and lures to defeat humans, and Eden knows he could fall for it too. He slams Brun into the ground one last time and extends his hand. Yup continues drinking the blood while Eden stores the light spear on his back. He reflects, maybe it was because I've improved. It turned out easier than expected, and the trouble at the ruins was worth it. The vampire cleanup is nearly done. Eden wonders where Yuan is as Daryl is still fighting nearby. He notices Daryl is performing better than expected, but it's clear he's extremely exhausted. Eden wonders if he should test his limits, then asks S to release the barrier. She must have used a lot of energy summoning a barrier that only traps demons. "It was well done," she said, but the joke signaled that she had just stayed focused on the barrier, asking about the others. Eden nodded and said, "I will check." Yuan finished off another demon. One of them told the human, "Clear the way quickly. I need to reach Lord Brun." The knight held his sword, trembling. However, the demon sneered and asked, "Don't you want to live? Get out of the way." But Yuan was thinking. Since Gillen had told him to focus and let go of all of his frustrations, he had learned to push his aura to the limit. He could now slice through even stone with a fingernail. He needed to feel the aura directly to understand it. So for just a moment, B1 decided he would channel his aura through his body. He would feel it, then swing his sword. Effortlessly, he sliced off the demon's head. The head fell beside Eden. The boy collapsed to the ground, exhausted. "Just 2 demons pushed me to this state," he said, gasping for breath. "I need to train much harder." Eden reflected on this. Yuan, who had once trembled when near death, was now able to defeat 2 enhanced demons. He saw potential in him. As Daryl approached, he said, "I dealt with the rest." Eden nodded. "It's time to finish this," he agreed. Stomping on one of the demon's heads, he confirmed the extermination. Then he asked, "Do you want the remaining bodies?" He pulls his sword out of one of the demons, and Daryl removes his dagger. Eden, however, grabs the spear. The paladin feels a vibration in his head and hears a voice say, now it was the demon's turn. Shaking in fear after discovering its weakness, Eden wonders how that creature is still alive. He transferred his body before losing his life, yet curses himself for falling into that trick. He opens his eyes and sees an explosion in front of him. He wonders what it was, but soon realizes it's an illusion created by a mutant. Suddenly, someone calls out to Eden. It's a female kit, approaching quickly. "It's been a while since I last saw you," she says, touching his face. "I missed you. Have you released your anger?" Eden reaches out his hand to the girl, then grabs her neck. "It would be better for you to ask to lose your life," he says, breaking the illusion of the mutant demon. Eden turns to Ewan and Daryl. "Prepare for the interrogation," he orders. Rooney suffers, forced into submission. Eden sits in front of him, tied up. "Do you remember the paladin who just ran away?" he asks. The demon screams, refusing to open his mouth. He thinks for a brief moment that he has managed to trap this man in his memories and emotions. So he knew he desired power, offering it to him. If he drank his blood and became his servant, he would gain far more power. Eden said he liked that because he wasn't afraid of pain, but of losing life itself. He reflected that, in a situation like this, he was thinking about survival. The vampire's power was linked to the human's desires, and his subordinates seemed surprised. He saved his life by stealing the body of a vampire from his own family and asked what that meant. Rooney asked if his body feared death. Eden said this was his last chance to speak about the paladin and thus spare his life. The demon mocked him. The boy was wrong, for the demon had lived for eternity and had no regrets. But humans have limited lives. He would give eternal life to Eden. But the boy slapped the demon's face, saying the demon didn't understand what he was doing. He said he would let him live. He answered not if he offered his blood to a paladin, thinking it would be eternal slavery, stabbing the dagger into the demon. Because if he didn't open his mouth, he would become the next skull. The vampire said he was a piece of us and asked if he would swear to his god to save his life. Eden swore in the name of the god Vachexer that if he opened his mouth, he would save his life. The demon confessed he had an inferiority complex about his talent and didn't drink it, but separately gave him the chance to choose. The boy reflected that he knew how these demons worked through hallucinations. They had to confirm desires and seduce people. Because Tyron had received the blood of a vampire, it clearly meant he was in conflict. Eden drove the sword into the demon's skull, saying, "If you drink my blood, you'll become a member of my family and see up close. But that's the end for you. You'd have nothing else." Eden turned around, accepting it. Rooney asked, "Are you really going to save his soul? Because if you do, you'll pay." He had remembered something, the location of the place Eden wanted, since they had torn apart all his servants. But Eden said, "It's not necessary." Brun said he clearly felt Eden's emotions and that he strongly wanted it, but Eden confessed, "I made a mistake. I shouldn't have sent my 2 servants to handle this." Brun begged him to wait, saying, "I swore to God, and I'm a bastard who bit my master. How dare you speak the false name of Vachexer?" Then he returned to his position like a hunting dog. He also wanted to know if Eden wasn't afraid of divine punishment, but Eden smiled and asked about that, telling him to get out of there. After the interrogation, the mutants and vampires were burned by the villagers. They checked to see if everything had turned to ashes because they had been suppressed by fear. After controlling their emotions, everyone bowed their heads to Eden and expressed their gratitude. He was the benefactor who had driven out the terrible misfortune and told them to offer prayers for themselves. The Lord's name of the village became that of the remaining son of the former chief, who had lost his life to the mutant. The boy asked if he was qualified since he had never done anything like this. But Eden said His Majesty allowed the boy to remain unharmed and that on his own account he should be the one to take care of the village. "As much responsibility as you might feel, you can't run anymore," Eden said. "You should train alongside the people of the village. You could ask the church to rebuild a safe place without collecting taxes." The boy cried and gave thanks, overwhelmed by the grace he had been shown. In the Lord's castle office, Eden said the report was already finished. It contained information about what he had seen during the eternal snowstorm. About the king with an important form, they would proceed with their investigation. The church will report and absolve Daryl, saying it will take care of the matter regarding Tyrone running away since he was out of time. All the information has been sent to the church. The last thing was not long ago in the office of Teen from the Holy Empire. Uriel asked, "Why would God tolerate suffering in the world? Can mere creatures understand divine will?" Eden said that was what he thought, but believed it came hand in hand with the blind faith of people, except for sutras. Most people create miracles through faith. Uriel asked, does that include the Paladin's work in performing miracles, since that is also faith? Eden replied, tribes believe in a warrior god with a body beyond human, and that the race considers the seed to be the source of all things. A group of believers caused an incident equivalent to divine power. Do you recognize those people as gods too? In most religions, people's gods are diverse, omnipotent, and the values they spread are fundamental. He paused. Due to people believing in a perfect god, humans use their teeth to bite and cry for their brothers. Especially since the majority of residents believed in Vakar as a god and saw all other religions as heretical. In general, this was the faith she denied behind her eyes, raising her voice and avoiding conversation with others. But Uriel had a look of relief, as it was hard to imagine Uriel being conflicted by that. She wondered why God seemed to have created such a terrible world. Was it an intentional test to try people's faith? Did God truly want that? She asked herself why he had granted so much sacred power and immense authority. But it was a long question without an answer. So she asked, do you believe in the truths of Vakar? The young man denied hating anything except annihilation and altruism. He especially hated treating demi-humans as slaves, as he only acted according to his own will. But he did not serve God. Instead, he used God as a principle. And Uriel acted based on her own dogmas too. It was sacrilegious to say what even looked like a god. She decided to ask just one more question. How on earth can you use the power of Vakar? Eden said he couldn't tell her, but he'd soon resolve whatever question she had. Outside, Daryl knocked, asking if Eden was there. The young man replied, what's going on? A paladin had been identified outside the city. Eden wondered if he had drunk blood. If that was the case, it was only natural for him to come after Eden, the one who had defeated the mutant. Eden was sure it was Tyrone, the one Bernie had spoken about, but he hoped it wasn't true. He wondered if Tyrone had drunk blood. Turning from a paladin into a vampire was a serious problem. Daryl warned he's already close by. Eden understood. He could be coming from any direction, but then he saw a man on horseback in front of him. Eden called out, Tyrone. The rider turned around laughing. The Lord was truly a great man, and that's exactly what made him all the more hateful. Eden drew his sword. That's a load of crap. As Tyrone charged toward him, Eden blocked the strike with his spear, asking, have you drunk the blood? The soldier only asked, curious? Eden felt a revulsion he usually only felt when facing a demon. The destroyer of evil recognized him, but suppression came first. With a swift strike, he threw Tyrone far away. He didn't notice the color of the blood and wondered if he wasn't a vampire as the other paladin collapsed in the snow. Thus, the man approached the fallen one, calling his name. Stop this pointless resistance, he said. Do you admit your changes? Tyrone responded, it's true. I've committed horrible sins. As an incompetent, weak bastard, I didn't even know what to do. My greed cost the lives of my subordinates. I begged the demons for my own life. Eden asked, what do you mean? Tyrone confessed his guilt, but still hadn't admitted defeat. He stood up as Eden asked, his voice hoarse. Do you really think you can win in that state? Eden questioned. It was obvious to anyone that he would lose, yet Tyrone kept doing pointless things. Tyrone muttered, you must think I'm stupid. Eden agreed. In the end, it's still a waste of time, and if you don't say anything, you'll be executed with no forgiveness for your sins. Tyrone stood frozen in fear, but then with a roar, he charged forward, sword raised high, trying to strike Eden. The young man leaped, spinning his spear through the air, moving toward Tyrone with a golden gleam. With a swift motion, he struck, sending Tyrone's sword flying from his grasp. Tyrone desperately tried to hold on to his last spark of hope. But Eden believed it's already over, causing an explosion amidst the snow. Tyrone lies on the ground, his armor shattered. He thinks that the swing sent him flying just by moving the spear, and that this man's skills were beyond his imagination. Eden says, I'll give you one last chance to apologize. Why did you come to me? Tyrone is terrified and unresponsive, remembering his subordinates pleading to be staved while he begged for his own life. He recalls the voice that defeated him in every moment of every day, the demon saying, if you want to erase the feeling of defeat, drink the blood of that body and become even stronger. Tyrone threw the vial far away, falling to the ground right after. He groans, unsure whether to believe the demon or not. He wanted to die as a paladin, so he didn't drink the blood. That's why he came there in case the mutant tested him again. This time he promised he would move and fight because he believed in his paladin's honor. But of course, all of that was before crossing this territory. And when he arrived, he saw people thanking Eden, asking how to repay their debt because it was all thanks to the paladin, and he said, everything is already over. Eden asked if the reason was guilt for coming back, saying that it was irresponsible. He wanted to save the villagers. He should have requested troops instead of coming alone. Tyrone says he already knew that, but felt inferior to the noble appearance of the other paladin. Because it was Eden, a paladin with extraordinary achievements, surrounded by hundreds of rumors, and the type he had always admired. The man wanted to say more because the place where he stored the evidence and memories of the crime was on his office desk. He threw away the black blood, and Eden took it. But it was enough as evidence. Though it wasn't a way to cleanse his sins, he truly wanted to protect the villagers. Soon, the aspects would come after him and reach the place where the mutants were. Eden asked if all of that is true, because dealing with mutants should be easy for them. And in the end, he wants to die at the hands of an aspect. But Tyrone says he would be defeated by the mutants before that. Eden reflects that if all of this is true, then Tyrone begged for his life from the devil and struggled with temptation. But he repented for his sins and tried to pay the price, though he never forgot about saving those people. Blue flame lights up as Eden wonders if he should lose his life. Since the aspect of execution would take his life without remorse, and to them, the church was like God, there was no mercy for heretics or those who harmed the dignity of the church. In the end, Tyrone would lose his life to the aspects. However, every human makes mistakes, and it wasn't truly just to take the life of someone who repents for their sins. Something is thrown at the two of them, but Eden extends his spear to block it, catching the war axe with a single hand. He thinks there's no helping it because he never thought she would come so quickly. The burro says, "You can even block with one hand, so he must be Lord Eden, whom I've long wanted to meet. I have much to say, but I will formally greet you after destroying the traitor's skull." Eden wonders why it had to be her. The girl apologizes for being rude and drawing her sword in front of the hero, asking for forgiveness. However, the traitor Tyrone must be executed. The man screams in fear right there. The woman dashes past Eden before he even notices, bursting from the ground with extreme speed, attempting to strike with her axe. But Eden puts his hand in front, stopping her from getting close to Tyrone. The woman loses her balance and asks, what was that directed at Lord Eden? Stunned that she was thrown aside, Eden's spear glows with blue flames as he tells him to stop this. Why did you stop her from trying to defeat me? Tyrone wonders aloud. What kind of situation is this? The girl looks at him and says, I tried, but you still defended Tyrone. Why are you protecting the traitor? Eden responds calmly, I'm not protecting him. I just don't want to see suffering. He isn't a demon. She narrows her eyes, her voice sharp. And what about the battle at the Grand Castle? I've heard you made a mess, according to one of the demonic cult's followers. Eden shakes his head. Tyrone is not part of the cult. The girl presses on, but are his sins greater than that? The paladin's brow furrows, confused. He reflects on her words, realizing that everything she said was tied to the traitor. That woman is crazy, he thinks. But she isn't done. You didn't try to execute him as well, she challenges. Eden answers firmly, no, I was simply investigating his crime. I tried to explain this to you. The girl falls silent, left without a response. As her companions approach, Silleran asks, what did you mean by that? Jay grumbles, you went ahead again, didn't you? The girl apologizes and Eden reflects. They must be Silleran's companions. One of them steps forward and identifies Eden. And the young man says the story continues with Tyrone performing his duty as a holy knight. He faced an enemy and was defeated. It was a 150-year-old demon. He was defeated without time to recover, and as the aspects knew, all Imperial forces were busy, but he needed help. Jude says, in other words, that meant the traitor would use them as tools to fight at the cost of his own life. Eden thinks he finally found someone who thinks, agreeing and saying, I never wished for defeat. Jude asks, is there any evidence to support your opinion? The paladin denies it. The companion explains, in that case, we don't know if the story is true or not. Maybe he was tricked by the traitor. Eden says, before answering, I'll conduct an investigation. So Tyrone's defeat is not the solution. Jude agrees if he insists, but he doesn't need to meet the gallows. Eden thinks that's good because the execution was suspended. Then he says Tyrone wasted the time of busy people due to his incompetence, and if he feels guilty, he should deal with his mistakes on his own. But if he feels remorse, he returned to the land of ice and prayed to God, thinking that from now on, it's Tyrone's time. And the man speaks of his lord truthfully, thanking him as he stands up. Sauter says, since it's all over, it's time to enjoy defeating those transformed monsters. But Eden apologizes, saying, I already defeated all the beasts. She asked about the bodies, happy to help clean up the ones turned to dust on the ground. Eden apologizes again, I already burned everything. The girl drops to the ground in frustration, muttering, it's not my day. But if she looks ahead, maybe she'll have a deeper conversation with him next time, wanting to know, do you know the taste of demon? The young man denies it, saying, I don't want to know. Reflecting, he thinks he doesn't need to take in meaningless things anymore. Jude calls out to Lord Eden, saying, I have news for you. The young man asks, what is it? Jude replies, the campaign was canceled. The captured troops will soon be released. Thank you for your hard work. He pauses, then adds, But anyway, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Jude, a holy mage of the night. Eden shakes his hand, saying, "It's a pleasure to meet you." He thinks to himself that Tegane has been doing a good job in his place. Jude says, "I knew Eden was a special friend of the Inquisitor Exorath." And the young man agrees. Saying it's something like that, the mage says he's been appointed as head of the Heresy Investigation Council and assistant to the Grand Master of the Knights. Eden looks down thoughtfully, considering that Tegan, the one putting this man in such important positions, was the one who recommended Exorath. It seemed they agreed to work together since the purge and internal corruption would soon be addressed. There was no need to worry about the Empire. Eden nods. That's great news. If Exorath becomes the assistant to the Grandmaster of the Knights, he will outrank me, Eden continues. I need to send a message to resolve Tyrone's situation. A bandaged man looks at Eden, nodding his head. It's Ja from the Holy Execution Squad. Jude adds, there's one final piece of news. He explains, I had a nomination for promotion in the Senate meeting hall. A man reads aloud, noting, he defeated a snow leopard, discovered something unnatural during the war, and saved a great hero. Not only that, he passed the Arhan test. All of this was done in a month and can't be explained by mere luck. Another man agrees. It's only normal for him to be promoted, even to the rank of a noble. Tegane speaks up. The agenda discussion is over. I have to leave. Commenting that Eden returned to the Empire and left again, someone asked, what's he playing this time? He's like a storm explosion wherever he goes. Jillian says, I'll leave at dawn. Eden agrees, apologizing for the inconvenience. There's nothing left to do in the north, Eden thinks. The only thing left is to leave. I have no choice but to head toward the King of the North, the Empire, and the Church. Jillian complains the boy's leaving all the work to me and walks off rudely. But Eden asks, who did I leave the important matters with? Good luck. Eden says while reflecting on their previous encounter. He felt the same as before, but wasn't sure. However, the power Karath gave him, the sacred flame ignited. In fact, the specific conditions for activating the sacred flame occurred when his bond with Vatcher resonated. This meant that when he stopped Silorum this time, his faith resonated with him, but Eden didn't understand what that meant yet. In any case, characters in games differ depending on their chosen paths. What was important was that he learned from sensing the activation of the sacred flame. He simply needed to practice that feeling. Jillian, Eden calls out quickly, can I have a duel with you before I leave? Jillian agrees, telling the boy to get ready since he should show his skills. He draws his sword, leaping from the ground in a second. At daybreak, Eden's horse departs the city. That was the direction I would take, he says. Sane and Daryl get excited, cheering happily. That's our next destination, Sane says, the coastal city of Eras. Ariel asks, how on earth can Eden use the power of Vatchar? The boy replies, it's hard to explain, but I will soon answer all my old questions. The city looks beautiful, with the bluish seawater stretching out before them. Daryl says, this place is completely different from anywhere else. It's the sacred land of adventurers. Eden responds, it's the only entry point to the unknown continent across the ocean. It's natural that many adventurers come here. The hunter agrees, then asks, do you think Sin will be careful? We're close to the riverbank, or she could get kidnapped by a mermaid. The girl laughs, saying, that's a lie. Even kids don't believe that anymore. Daryl jokes, her innocent worldview will soon collapse. Eden reflects, this kind of atmosphere isn't bad. Sane questions, what are you talking about? Childhood? I see blood every day. That kind of thing doesn't exist. Daryl is disappointed, and a little girl apologizes, saying she didn't mean it that way. But she has a question for the Paladin. Do mermaids eat humans? Eden thinks for a moment and replies, it could be the case, because they eat each other. Frightening. Sing. He thinks he was too direct, shattering her childhood again. But someone with a tray says the mermaid dish that was ordered has arrived. The man adds, it's a wild mermaid, sliced like a fish and cooked. Daryl comments, it looks beautiful and tastes delicious. They already ordered food, and they ask Eden if they'll be eating it. Eden shakes his head. Don't worry. I would never agree to eat that. He drops a hint, thinking the topic is forbidden. Mermaids were originally creatures like us. Daryl asks, are you saying they're human? Eden tells him, you'll understand soon. It's finally time for that. Before Ewan arrives, he reads his letter. Upon arrival, he has someone to meet first. We have work to do, he says. I'll take care of this first. After they finish their meal, they should go to the mermaids' tier in the center of the city inside the Adventurers Guild. Eden turns, climbing a staircase. A girl asks, were you looking for me? She smiles and adds, it's a pleasure to meet you. Introducing herself, she says, I'm Yuna, a high-ranking adventurer. She asks, why were you looking for me? Eden replies, I need you to accompany me at sea. The girl, curious, wants to know the direction of his journey. Eden responds, we're heading into the middle of the sea. I need you to guide me to the ocean's depths. Yuna laughs and says, that's a joke fitting of a paladin's path. She was known for being a skilled adventurer, but she held a hidden truth. Eden couldn't speak of it due to the banishment. He asks, can you take me to the ocean floor? The girl, confused, asks, what does that mean? Eve decides they should have some snacks and talk about it again. Aras is famous for serving mermaid dishes. He says, I know a new restaurant that just opened. He then asks, what happened to you? I thought you'd be enjoying a fresh ocean breeze. Yuma, however, is uneasy. She wonders if Eden knows her secret. Her true identity is that of a mermaid. She must take his life, and it would be easy. But instead of acting immediately, she decides to run. As she attempts to flee, Eden grabs her, saying, don't resist. He catches her hand before she can escape. Yuna wonders, did he defeat me instantly? Looking back, uneasy about it, Eden says, I have no intention of hurting you, which relieves the girl as well. They both fall silent as Eden lets her go. I need to go to the sea, he says. Can you accept my request? She remains silent for a few minutes. The mermaids live in the sunken city of Atlantis, located deep in the Baboon Strait, where the siren tribe serves the god of the sea and originally transforms themselves. They live both in the ocean and on land. But during the war, when Vatcher defeated the other gods, the god of the sea was shattered and sealed. After that, a strange transformation took place for the siren tribe. Their power of transformation and magic deteriorated. In Atlantis, they appear human, but when they leave and touch land, they appear as monsters. Most of them live forgotten by human history. Some even became the kind of mermaids that humans consume. But unlike the others, Yuna held the full power of the sea god, being the only servant and liberator of Atlantis. She asks, what did you know? Eden says that according to his plan, he was aligned with her, thinking about Yuna's desire for freedom. The great hero Elpus, he adds. Servant of Vectexer was the only one to imprison the siren tribe in Atlantis. Now free, they often visit the remnants of Elpus. The secret relic of Elpus could help resolve Uriel's debts, and for that process, he would join her at the tier of mermaids in the coastal city of Ira. He says that's where they'll begin. Daryl asked him, who is she, the lovely young lady at your side? Eden replies, and she share her story in general. It would be easier for her to explain that way. She believes that when the ban is broken, it'll be easier for others to hear the information, and it's classified as something Eden knows. The girl asked, should I tell everything? You know, since you also know and could tell it yourself. She then asked if he intends to get to know her without knowing anything. Eden says, for the sake of my plan and safety, we should put on a little performance. It's better if you tell the story. That way, only your identity and purpose are revealed. Eden nods and says her reason is simple. She is what they call a mermaid from the siren tribe, deep in Atlantis. Daryl falls to the floor and asks, what is that thing on her arm? Eden tells him, don't be shocked. Sane says, the girl is incredibly beautiful, especially that specific color. Yuna questions him about it. They interact while Eden asks Geralt to clean himself up and sip properly, noting that Sin is good at making friends, even with Yup. Yuna asks, who is Yup? He explains it's a god that eats demons and sleeps, which makes the girl laugh. He was heading to Atlantis with Yuna, but both of them and Ewan had another mission. Sin would stay behind with Yup. Daryl asks, are you going to Atlantis alone? He denies it. The three of us are going to Atlantis, he says, just as someone knocks at the door. Eden remarks, it seems she has arrived. Someone should open the door. Daryl goes to do it. Paladin reflects that she would arrive soon anyway. The hunter opens the door, surprised. A short-haired girl says, it's been a while since I last saw Lord Eden, and this is the perfect time. The girl who had just arrived was the Saint Uriel. He had sent a letter asking her to come without telling anyone. She asks, are you really trying to clear your schedule for 10 days? That's incredibly reckless. Ewan replies, if the saint is worried, Eden has something to tell her. The words were a bit harsh, and Uriel assumes. He said something that borders on blasphemy again. In that place, she thinks it's hard to find anyone like that, asking, what's wrong with this guy? He's seriously frightening. He turns around and asks, who is this person to Eden? I thought Eden's type was men. The paladin places a hand on his head. Daryl kneels on the floor, apologizing for being rude to the saint and saying, I'll pay with my life. Eden says, if it had been another saint, she would have taken his life. Uriel tells him to stand up, saying, if she killed people without reason, no one would survive. She asks Eden, am I right? He agrees but says, I want to thank her for working so hard and coming such a long way, then asks, what excuse did you give? Uriel replies, everyone thinks she went to a funeral, which is practically blasphemy. Yuna apologizes to Ewan and asks, what is this funeral the two of you are talking about? The knight says it's a ritual of praying in the chapel for a month where eating, sleeping, and receiving visitors are forbidden. But Eden interrupts, saying that kind of thing is pointless. There's no reason for her to feel guilty because she did well. The path taken from the beginning was to pursue divinity, not superstition. Divine power isn't obtained that way. And he brought the girl to show the evidence of her being in first place. Uriel says that he will definitely show it. Eden wonders if Vatchikar is truly omnipotent, since after Uriel started doubting that fact, falling from her disbelief into brainwashing, she collapsed terribly in the end. Had Uriel not done that to herself, a great force would have broken her heart. He would personally destroy that strong belief. Even calls for Yuna, asking for them to begin the conversation. Everyone in the room grows serious as the talk begins and Yuna starts to speak about her past. Yov, Daryl, and S are left in disbelief. Even Uriel is shocked by what she hears. She asks, why did Vatches turn people like us into monsters just for living in the ocean? She speaks of seeing people eat mermaid flesh because there was no other way. Crying out in anger, she runs away while Daryl tries to call the saint to stop her. Eden remains silent near Yuna. Heading outside, Daryl asks, what are we going to do? Eden asks how the saint is doing. He tries to answer, explaining that she kept crying in her room after quietly kneeling down. The Paladin reflects that soon the people of the Empire will know the truth, and there will be a huge reaction. Because he needs a necessary process for the right things, and he was concerned about those who still have no rest within the Empire. Yuv is asleep on top of a chest. Eden descends the stairs to meet with his group. He wonders when everyone managed to calm down. Daryl asks, can I ask the saint a question? He wants to know what happened to the Desert Paladin. Uriel asks, do you mean Lord Tyrone? He was dismissed and was going through a trial. Eden reflects, thinking that Sarah handled everything well. He says, everyone is finally gathered. Ewan greets Lord Eden, saying, we've been waiting for the scriptures together. Aboard the ship, Eden, Yuna, and Uriel head out to sea. Sai and her companions wish their lord a safe journey. But Eden stands up, steering the boat. It continues sailing across the sea. The Paladin comments, Uriel seems to have calmed down a bit. Uriel says, things are slowly becoming clear, but as someone who serves God, it's something I should have known by now. Eden responds, that's just how the saint put it. And suddenly something happens. Uriel asks, what are all those vibrations? The Paladin turns and asks the same thing. A hurricane forms on the water, and Yuna says it's an unexpected problem. There's a surprise attack coming from a group of mermaids, and I can't explain it. Isn't this the haunted area? Eden asks, how much further until the destination? Yuna responds, we're close. The sea continues to shake, causing the boat to rock violently. Eden thinks to himself, this is insanely difficult. If it continues, the ship will sink. Yuna tells everyone, come back. If you eat my scales, you'll be able to breathe and move through the sea. Uriel eats them and complains, this tastes horrible. Eden reflects, it's difficult to enter combat while protecting a saint, with the ship on the verge of breaking apart. He says, when I give the signal, everyone should jump. Yuna asks the Paladin, please don't take their lives. I'll try to stop everything from happening. Eden agrees, saying, I will. The girl nods and says, I'll act quickly. He starts to count. 1, 2, 3. As the boat cracks, he jumps into the sea. The boat finally breaks and sinks into the ocean. They die, sinking into the depths. Eden starts forming scales on his body. He asks Atlantis, just wait for me. Ariel reflects, it's incredible, because now she can breathe underwater, but she notices something different in her body. She's growing a tail. She says she turned into a mermaid as a fish-like creature attacks, trying to bite her. Uriel is completely terrified, but the creature is stopped by Eden, who punches it in the face. He asks if the saint is all right, and she confirms. Then the Paladin starts to guide her, heading toward the mermaids at the bottom of the sea. Uriel says these ones seem calm, and Eden explains that it's because of Yuma. The mermaids originally served the sea deity, and she has a relationship with Yuna, so they instinctively feel the energy of the sea god. She asks how bold they are to block her path, and if they want to live, they should get out of there. The fish simply turn around to leave. Yuna says that luckily suppression using divine energy works. She thanks her friends for waiting and guiding them. Eden reflects that the current and water pressure were stronger than before, and he was sure it was beneath their current position. Ariel seemed tired, which was probably natural since she wasn't physically active, but she asks why they're taking this path all of a sudden. So Eden explains that he came there to help, holding Uriel's hand, and asking her to relax a little and just follow him. The girl agrees. She says she'll try, but she reflects that it's still a little difficult. She wonders if it's really possible to swim through this mysterious path in the ocean's depth. She denies it quickly. It seems impossible, and there's no sense of a place led by divine belief. Either way, she shifts her thoughts. These were new experiences since she was with Lord Eden. She thinks he's a strange man. In the underwater city called Atlantis, a trio stands at its entrance. Eden suddenly calls for the saint, revealing that their hands are still joined, The girl pulls away, apologizing repeatedly. She thinks she didn't mean to hold on purposely. Eden tells the saint to come quickly. From that point on, Yuna's abilities are unlocked thanks to the air pressure. A guard asks who she is. Before he can do anything further, Eden knocks him out. He says, I don't want to take a soldier's life, so Yuna should relax. He explains that if the barrier breaks and the water escapes, all the residents will turn into monsters, but the curse would save the submerged residents. He would maintain the barrier and bear the curse upon his own race. She would lead the sirens to the surface as previously planned. The team would wait for them outside with the boat. Yuna agrees, saying it would minimize the damage. Eden says it's obvious that not everyone will survive. If they leave things as they are, my race will live forever in ignorance, sending their own families to slaughter. He reflects it's a familiar dilemma about the fragile pretext of saving the future. Every time I make a choice like that, my heart feels weak and frustrated. Uriel notices the frustration coming from the night. Inside the temple of the sea god Shan, Yuna says the Paladin has arrived. This is the moment organized by the Siren tribe. I will pray to see them again on land. They approach a statue where Uriel comments on its size. Shaon was the first who started it all, he says. Ian tells them to just proceed with their goal. Behind that door is a key that will answer all the saints' doubts. They stand in front of an even larger statue of Shane. Eden approaches, thinking that he could finally use the key he received from Arhane in the ruins, granting him the authority or representative of Vachar. He calls to Shan. I speak as a representative of God, for Vachar forgives your sins. Suddenly, the whole church turns golden, and the shield begins to break there. Yuna thinks the barrier has finally been shattered. Eden says that after the city is sealed, he has something to tell her. He reflects that saving Uriel was simple. There was no need to bring her to this dangerous place. Then he says he needs the saint's 2 eyes, asking her to give them to him, while reflecting that the real reason he brought Uriel was to obtain the eyes of the mind. The saint asks, did I hear that correctly? She repeats, you need to take my eyes. Eden wonders if she is trying to confirm the truth. He asks, did you not know what that meant? You already figured something out, haven't you? Uriel realizes that he isn't lying. She says, you didn't hesitate to profane right in front of me. She is certain he knew. Then the statue of Shaon calls out to the mortal. Did a checker bring you here? Eden denies it, saying, I came of my own will. Shaon asks, are you saying the king never forgave this sinner? If that's the case, then the curse will not be lifted. He continues, you were trying to lead the children of the ocean to ruin, to commit sins while still under a curse. The barrier will break, and the city will be flooded. Everyone will turn into monsters, meeting their end. Eden says, I know that, and it's because they are pagans who have served him since the beginning. Their sect would never forgive paganism. So if they reach land safely, all that awaits them is either cremation or a living trial. But I have a talisman, and they can be forgiven without fail. I'll ensure nothing is destroyed because Yuma has been secretly spying on this for a long time in the Empire, and I have been hiding for even longer. Shaon asks, does that mean you were explicitly not authorized? Did you think the great Emperor Vachexar would allow this? The power of the sea god converges with the golden power of the boy. Ariel complains, I can't breathe. Eden tells her, wait just a little longer. It's been 200 years since my lord descended. Shay asks, did a Chekexer ascend to the heavens again? Eden doesn't know. However, he says, if the woman beside me loses her life, I will certainly annihilate all of Shallan's people. The goddess becomes aware of the danger she's in. Eden says, I won't lose my life. I have countermeasures and a plan for this. The goddess decides to listen. You're not someone ordinary, she says. Since he doesn't tremble in fear in front of him, the sea god, she assumes any threat from a body was just a lingering thought. Calling him an audacious brat who never loses his will, she says there's no doubt his sins have now been forgiven by this divine power. He mustn't believe in it, she adds, since she's only doing this out of debt. Then she points her hands at Eden, saying he is the one who will break the chain. He gave a false title along with immense power, asking him to deny the defeat of the other. This is his only chance, and he must be careful. Eden had released the title of Liberator of Atlant. The two sail through the depths of the ocean. Uriel asks, where are we heading now? Eden replies, to the ruins of the great hero who once stood shoulder to shoulder with Arhan. The saint says, all residents became mermaids, but they're safe. The paladin explains it's because of Yuna's power. Ariel had no choice but to move now. She says that Eden asked her to give him the divine eye, the power of a god, and wonders if that's even possible. The boy answers, yes, a bit hesitantly. Ariel realizes that's why he brought her here. Since she didn't know, she understands now. He was one of the few people who treated her sincerely. Eden responds that he wasn't sure if she would go into the depths after hearing his intentions, and the divine eye wasn't the only reason. He reminds her that she promised to tell the truth about the gods. Ariel comments that it's hard to tell where he's looking since she's sure he'll do this again. It's frustrating, so she'll just give it to him. Eden says that's not the case. She should understand that this isn't for his personal gain because he's not asking for an immediate answer. She has plenty of time to think about it, and the evidence of what she thinks about God has become clearer, so she will decide. They continue their path. Eden reflects that it's clear because there was a possibility she might refuse, but it was still quite low. Since he planned to doubt in her mind, he could take advantage of that. Besides, it's easier to manipulate the plot when Uriel is shaken by the divine eye. He would make a swift exchange. So for now, it was purely Uriel's decision. They finally arrive at the hero's ruins. Uriel comments that it looked like a barrier that wasn't meant to keep things out. Eden agrees, saying it didn't seem penetrable, and they can only access it with divine power. The saint is startled as she looks at the head. Seeing a skeletal body wrapped in chains, bound to prevent it from escaping, she calls it a devil, but Eden decides they'll take this path for now. Ariel apologizes for just a moment since her body can't move anymore. Eden takes the girl's hand. She repeats that she can't move, but the Paladin says he'll help. The saint asks if he's doing this on purpose, but Eden responds that once she calms down, she can decipher the stone on the platform. Ariel says she understands and will begin anyway, so they walk hand in hand. The girl activates her emerald eyes, inspecting inscriptions on an ancient screen. Uriel speaks, saying this was the true identity of that demon, and asks if it's true. Eden agrees, explaining that he was someone who once prayed and followed the orders of Vaxar, but he fell from grace and became a demon known as the origin of the beginning, and his vast existence is the only proof that Vaxar is not omnipotent. That is Elpus, the one who was once a great hero. Scripture says that Elpus, under Vatixar's command, imprisoned the Siren tribe in the vast ocean, but he was burdened by his own horrific actions. Anger, bear, hatred, and envy. These were the primordial demons born from human emotions. And Elpus succumbed to corruption. Unable to overcome his guilt, he lost his eyes and ears in the process, becoming a vessel for screams. Yet still unable to endure his own remorse, he decided to eliminate the source of his suffering. If the Siren tribe disappears from the world, he thought, I will no longer be tormented. Thus, the purpose of Elpus, now a demon, was to wipe out the Siren tribe. Afterward, he sealed himself away, clinging to the last remnants of his sanity. But if the seal were ever broken, he would go after them immediately. Uriel became uneasy, sensing the danger. Eden, however, spoke up. You have a choice, Eden said. You can have her awaken the demon, or you can turn away and leave. It was clear that Eden was contemplating the awakening of Elpus himself. From the ruins of great heroes, occasional memories from 2 centuries ago, as well as lost scriptures, are discovered. However, simply taking these scriptures was not enough. One had to prove their worth to obtain them. The requirement for entering Elpus Palace, hidden in the ruins of Atlantis, was to annihilate the fallen hero with one's own hands. Uriel had to be warned of such a fate. The girl asked, in case of an unfavorable scenario, if they failed to subdue him, would they be creating a tragedy with their own hands? And after all, they were using people's lives as collateral for their goal, and that wasn't the right thing to do. Eden responds, I cannot deny that. But in any case, he continues, Bakker left Elpus, who sealed himself in Atlantis. It is said that at some point, Elpus will awaken and unleash his power. Ariel asks, what does that mean? Eden explains, the shackles will gradually disappear. There is no eternal punishment, so even if not now, he will one day be free. Uriel says, if Elpus is one of the primordial demons, we are risking our lives. Eden replies, with the saint at his side, he has a chance. On top of everything else, he has victories earned through Ardan's trial. Uriel says, I will believe in the path the Lord is walking. She then begins to pray to the holy Vatixar, calling for this sword of annihilation to light up the night and hold the sun in place. With darkness descending and judgment being served, she asked for an answer. Eden thinks the message was understood because the blessing came from Uriel. And if divine power is beyond imagination, it's more than he can control. Eden rises from the ground with his sword, charging toward the sealed body of Elpus. He prepares for a descending strike, aiming to strike the fallen former hero, and so he severs his left arm. Elpus cries out in pain now without his hand and awakens, but Eden rushes out and lifts Uriel in his arms. I'll take you to safety, he says. He carries her to the stone platform, asking, are you all right? But the demonic energy emanating from Elpus is too strong. The seal holding Elpus has been broken, Eden says. Now he will slowly begin to move. When the Paladin prepares to fight, Eden is interrupted by a demonic figure appearing behind the saint. He moves quickly, thinking to defend her, realizes it's already too late. Being pierced in place of the girl, Uriel cries out to the Lord. Eden coughs up blood after being wounded. As Elpus licks his fingers, the saint agonizes over her friend's injury. "Eden," she cries, "stay with me." Eden asks the saint to begin healing him. The woman agrees, tears streaming down her face. They rise from the ground. The saint begins to use her divine healing power on the paladin. Provide support from there, Eden tells her. The bro complains, "But you're still injured." The paladin, now healed, says, "I'll take care of the creature." So the saint should assist, she says, and she understands. The young man thinks that Elpus now has his blood heading toward the fallen hero, who turns to face him. Eden lands a punch straight to his face, forcing the creature to retreat with the blow. It slams its head on the ground and is thrown, causing a massive explosion. Eden draws his spear, imbued with divine power, but Elpus gets up and charges at him, striking his weapon before the boy can attack. He thinks the demon is incredibly fast. The creature lifts its leg to kick, striking the paladin's stomach, making him drop the spear. Eden spits blood before falling. Elpus slams him into the ground with great force, but amidst the wreckage, blood drips onto the ground. Eden stands up, holding his spear, enduring the pain. He says, "She's still called the saint because with those claws, my wounds would have been sliced like paper." He throws his armor aside, telling the saint that he's fine and asking her to continue her support. Uriel says, "I understand," and resumes praying, while Eden reflects that the wounds from that bastard are still regenerating. He has to finish this before Elpus fully heals. Ella screams before charging toward the young man. Eden emanates his aura while observing the creature. Then both of them advance toward each other, beginning the clash. Eden strikes with a horizontal spear swing, but Elpus dodges, countering with several claw swipes that Eden blocks. The creature even manages to land a hit on Eden's arm, but Eden retaliates, landing a blow on his rib. He asks the saint to keep bestowing blessings on him because he was going to defeat the monster in a few moves. So Uriel does, praying to Vichex to save her friend. Blessings quickly descend upon Eden. The man grips his spear, now empowered, and says, "Finally, this is it." The true power coming from the Centurial. He charges at Elpus, unleashing multiple high-speed slashes with his spear. Eden turns back again, trying to land another strike, but the creature dodges. Eve leaps from the ground with force, striking and launching the fallen hero far away. Help has his limbs severed by the saint, now reinforced with holy power, and his head is separated from his body. A massive explosion erupts in the battle area. Eve remains standing, holding his spear. He says the creature was completely turned to dust and was far more powerful than he had imagined. But a bad sensation takes over his body. Collapsing to the ground, Eden thinks about the pain and wonders if it's a recoil from the blessing Ariel gave him. He knows Ellis is not lifeless yet, and that phase 1 had only ended. If he collapses like this, it'll all be over. Elpus particles begin to gather. He embraces himself with the spear and says, "If I had known about the recoil, I would have only used the blessing in phase 2. The particles of Elpus finally come together, but Eden's eyes start to close and he loses consciousness as Uriel screams his name. Eden wakes up suddenly. Seeing Uriel beside him, he asks, "What happened? Did you jump down just to heal me, even though both your legs were broken?" Then he tells her, "You should confirm your position in life more assertively." Uriel responds that it was her first time seeing this level of recoil, and she was shocked. But the battle wasn't over yet. Eden agrees, saying, "You're right. When I give the signal, you should bless me again." The girl absolutely refuses, saying, "It's too dangerous. Continuing like that would cost you your life." Eden draws his spear, thinking that now is the time to suggest a trade. His spear begins to emit a golden light. All the scriptures glow in blue. He asks for a moment, holding Uriel. The girl says, "It's true my leg is hurt, but this is too sudden." Eden walks with the girl in his arms until they reach the scriptures. He asks her to read the altar, where it says that the one who discovers it may exchange power with mutual consent. He adds, "This is a reference within the ruins." Ariel says he definitely didn't ask for her eyes just to find others. Eden agrees, acknowledging that he was human too. He explains that he received the power to revive those who lost their lives from the sea god. But sadly, it's a one-time only power. Uriel asks, "If by offering my mind's eyes so you won't lose your life from the blessing's recoil, does it mean you want to be saved?" Eden says, "I know it's an unreasonable request, but I think in the end, no power will be left for you." He continues, "From now on, it will be harder to defeat the fallen hero once he awakens." Elpus begins to take form. Uriel says clearly, "My friend had said the chances of winning were high." Eden explains, "I had confidence in the saint's blessing, but had no idea about the recoil." He apologizes, saying it was his fault. But the saint says if we fail the mission, everyone here will lose their lives. She felt like everything was intentional. He had taken too many lives as hostages and was no different from threatening her through the mind's eye. Eden says, "This isn't the time for that," but Uriel asks, "Did you have any respect for all those people?" Because all of it led to just one word. Paladin closes his eyes and agrees with the girl. Uriel looks at him with her power, implying that it was a lie. Eden says that, as he had said before, he was human too. But she asks him not to make that joke again, thinking he was a detestable man. He is the only person she cannot rid with the eyes of the mind because he lies as easily as drinking water. He hurts her without any reason, and sometimes it feels like he only sees people as objects. But he's someone who always creates a good ending. So Uriel suggests that he make her a promise. He must never use that power on her. Eden agrees with the girl and places his hand on the stone. Runes spread over the Paladin's arm. Uriel reflects that she had this power her entire life, so she feels regret. But still, it's a relief because the eyes of the mind taught her many lessons and at the same time left hundreds of scars. By seeing the other side of people, she believed he had no romantic feelings beyond human nature. But she realized that's not the case. She was becoming disoriented by expecting things from people. She didn't know what was in Eden's heart, but she would check for herself, wanting him to see the world through the Lord's eyes in the future. Eden activated his ocular power for the first time, saying, "I swear I'll make good use of it." Elpus was ready with his sword to strike them both. Uriel began to pray, saying, "This would be a wager on my life," and Eden told her not to relax. But Elpus introduced himself as Paladin Belhard, saying he would personally finish the task he left incomplete. He released demonic energy projectiles toward the pair. Eden protected them using divine power, while calling out to the Holy Woman, since blessing is a power that forcibly enhances an object's potential, and he knew it was a heavy burden even for the invoker. He said, "But regardless of the reason, you must give it your all." Uriel replied, "Don't worry, I'll bet everything on the next blessing." Eden rises from the ground, ready to strike. He agrees with the saint's goal as he aims to pierce Elpus. He lands a blow, but the hero blocks with his sword. Thus, they exchange strikes without landing any real hits. Eden is taking damage from blocking, but he forces Elpus to retreat with a horizontal slash. The woman begins to have her neck dissolve through her skin. Eden gives no time to rest and charges again, engaging in another fast exchange of blows with the fallen hero. Elpus shouts as he swings his sword sideways, landing a blow that sends Eden flying downward. The Paladin's weapon is driven into the ground. Eden is left wide open and knocked out, muttering that the speed, already fast, had grown even greater. Elpus launches the projectile toward the man, piercing his chest immediately after. Eden begins to lose consciousness. The fallen hero approaches, stabbing his sword into Eden's chest. Eden reflects that even if he uses the blessing, if he dodges, everything will be in vain. So first, he must stop the enemy's movement. His spear falls into the snow. Gillen asks, "Did you say it was inflammation?" That ability alone could be called excellent, but some level of improvement could come with practice. Eden says he thought the same, but was worried about how to use it. Gillen says, "I'm a paladin who uses sword and spear, so if possible, it would be better to use it as a supply for my equipment." Thus, the swordmaster charges toward him, saying, "Block the strike somehow." The attack nears Eden as the master says, "I'll push you until you're ready." A light radiates from the ruin and Eden says, "These are the teachings of Gillen." He pulls the sword from his own chest, grabbing the creature's wrist. Eden's hand begins to emit a blue flame. He says, "It reminds me of my old days, burning as I prepare to strike Elpus." He calls for Uriel and her blessing. The saint nods in response, beginning her prayer as Eden radiates sacred flame. Elpus screams in pain as he is burned. Eden grabs his spear, his eyes lighting up with hope once again. He says, "I will take Elpus' life," landing a strike with his spear while wielding the sacred flame. A golden light illuminates the entire battlefield alongside a flame of blue and yellow. Eden commands the fallen hero to disappear from the world, striking repeatedly to prevent it from regenerating. The paladin watches the defeat of his opponent as the golden light explodes across the battlefield, destroying all the remaining ruins of the hero. A trail of destruction is left behind by the hero's strike. Uriel stands up amidst the wreckage, coughing blood onto the ground right after. The girl tries to stand, thinking it was too much. She hadn't expected to use healing and blessings in that amount. She needed to find Eden and revive him before she collapsed the same way. She never imagined she could defeat Elpus on her own. Now she wonders what kind of level this man was on in the world. Something rises behind the saint. She says the possibility of Lord Eden moving is low and asks, is it possible that Elpus could still be alive even after those attacks? A hand emerges from the rubble on the ground, opening a hole in that massive abyss. A figure stands in front of Uriel. The girl tries to call out to Elpus, but the figure standing is Eden, who then collapses to the ground right after, falling unconscious and on the brink of death. Uriel approaches him slowly, becoming aware of the situation before her. She heads toward Lord Eden. The girl asks, "Are you okay?" because he isn't breathing. She places her head on his chest, saying, "Fortunately, his breathing is still faintly there. Eden must wait here, because she will surely heal him." Placing her hand over his, the saint began to channel her blessing into the paladin. Eden's injuries slowly faded under its light, yet Uriel herself was visibly weakening, struggling to remain conscious as she continued to help her friend. Eden rested a hand on her shoulder. "Holy woman," he said softly, "let me take it from here. I'm all right." She started to protest, but he insisted. Her wounds were far more serious than his, and she needed to leave the rest to him. They stood amid the collapsing ruins. Eden winced at the ache in his arms and said, "Now that the master of this place has fallen, the palace will slowly crumble." His whole body still ached, and the backlash from the blessing had not yet faded. Without Uriel, he would never have had the strength to escape. Amid the debris, Eden spotted a small box. Ariel asked, "What's that?" "It holds the key to uncovering the mystery of the saint," Eden replied. "And more importantly, it's the reason we came here in the first place. First, we should get out. Then I'll sever down." Ariel nodded. "I was about to suggest the same." The boy gave a small nod, allowing her at last to rest peacefully. While escaping through the water, Eden swam as fast as possible, holding the saint in his arms. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. She said, "We haven't reached the surface yet." I felt so relieved that I lost consciousness for a moment, but it felt like I was being protected. She blushed, thinking I'm crazy for thinking that about a paladin. The girl noticed her eyes burning suddenly, and even her fins had disappeared. Uriel could no longer breathe underwater. Eden noticed the saint's distress and wondered if Yuna's ability had faded. They were in big trouble, struggling to reach the sea level. He had no choice. The only option was to inject oxygen directly as soon as possible. He kissed Uriel, and through mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, the saint regained her breath next to Eden. The paladin looked at her seriously, and she blushed at him. They finally reached the surface, lifting their heads out of the water. Eden said, "That was dangerous, but thankfully we managed to escape." Yet Uriel backed away, asking, "Take a step back." The ship approached, and someone shouted, "Well done. You're here. Just grab the rope and climb aboard." Daryl asks Eden, "What are all those injuries?" Eden tells his subordinate, "Don't make a fuss." Yuna hands a towel to the paladin. He thanks her, placing it on his shoulder, and says, "The saint's injuries are more serious than mine. We should provide first aid in the cabin." Eden tells her, "Rest here. I'll visit you shortly." Yuna asks, "What happened?" "I never imagined I'd see you this badly hurt." Eden replies, "Elpus lost his life." The mermaid asks, "Is that true?" The paladin responds, "If you don't believe it, you can go back and check." According to the original game, Yuna became the liberator of Atlantis, but half of the Sire race was sacrificed in the process of subjugating Elpus. Eden asks Yuan, "Give the Bible to the saint." The knight agrees. Meanwhile, the mermaid thinks that the liberation of her tribe alone wasn't enough, but he also subdued the fallen hero. She thanks him, but Eden interrupts, saying, "I did it for myself." He asks, "Where are the members of the tribe?" The girl replies they were taken to a nearby strait. Eden comments, "In the process of liberation, their sins were forgiven by God, but if they continue praying to the sea god, they cannot live on land. He would stay in the strait for a few days. So she must persuade her tribe to convert to the religion of Vachiger as much as possible." Yuna asks, wanting to know, is he truly a paladin of the church? I honestly don't understand why he acts this way. From the church's perspective, they were pagans. Eden says, "I just don't like the smell of burnt people." Thinking that the lost Bible he gave to Uriel contained the truth that would shake the foundations of Vachiger's religion, the die would have to be cast. If she reads it, the only remaining remnant of her faith might be shattered. Wondering if Uriel will accept it, he knocks on the door, calling for her. "I'm going to enter the cabin," he says. Uriel opens the door, completely bandaged, allowing the paladin to enter her room. A few hours earlier, she had been sitting on the bed, saying that as a woman of God, she had committed a sacrilege by kissing a knight. Of all days, it had to be the day the gods were to awaken. The man who stole her heart and her lips now seemed to want to steal the rest of the faith she had left. And if he takes that faith away, she wonders, what will he ask for next? Eden sits in front of her and asks, "Did you read the Bible?" Uriel thinks that, just as expected, he didn't seem to care about what happened to her. "So," she says, "I read up to the part where the sacred land of Babylon fell." Eden confirms that she's aware since Babylon, the land beyond the continent, is now hell. A place that once had hundreds of holy cities and was the headquarters of Vachiger's church, but it became the battlefield where he descended. That happened over 200 years ago. Since then, that place became the devil's land. In other words, it meant that Vachiger is not omnipotent. He and his army were defeated in the Holy Land and were annihilated. As a result, the Babylon of today is hell on earth, and the truth has been hidden all this time to make everyone believe that he is omnipotent. Uriel says if this scripture is revealed to the world, it will be classified as forbidden material. Eden notes that she doesn't seem too shocked. The saint says it's surreal, but just as you said, an orderly ceremony is inefficient. The Paladin agrees, saying, "It's true. Being confined in a chamber is a waste of time. It's more efficient to travel through countries and visit desolate lands. Missionary activity is the best method of practicing to gain divine power. And it's the correct way, according to Vakchexar's teachings, to obtain holy strength." Uriel comments, "I didn't think baptism was entirely useless. After all, there are no pagans left to convert in the Empire. It's a growth criterion that only applies to conversion targets." Eden responds, "The continent isn't made up of just hell. Beyond the eastern and western deserts, there's the province of Mado, where they worship their native religion." The girl adds, "They can't subjugate or convert them, even in a crusade." Eden agrees, "Yes, since they normally pray and undergo baptism, but the latter part is correct. I believe the continent's religion should be unified." Uriel, confused, asks, "But you deny Vakyager more than anything." Eve replies, "It's necessary for the future," while thinking about how hypocritical the contradiction is. The girl says, "You seem to be hiding secrets again." Eden apologizes. In this case, the saint has something to do. She asks, "Are there many conversion targets there?" He answers, "Yes, since it's an empire." The girl questions, "Isn't it right for you to do it yourself?" Eden responds, "It's not right to treat everyone like a stepping stone for my growth." But though he can't gain anything from them now, thinking that noble hypocrisy comes from fear and envy of others. That's why one only gains divine power when it's directed toward oneself. Strangely, there was something he'd never seen in the game before. It was a unique talent only he possessed. Then the young man asks, "What will you do?" Uriel replies, "Now that I've learned the true nature of Vakchexar, I think I'll have to pretend that God is omnipotent for the sake of the mission. I have no justification to hide that." Eden says, "If you just can't believe in God, you could believe in me instead." She is completely confused by the statement, but last saying it really sounded like something Lord Eden would say. At the same time, in a street restaurant in the coastal city of Ira, people ask about the food. When the power of the sea god begins to fade, the mermaids will return to land and to their original form. Made from Oros, the city's residents will experience terrible nausea. With this news quickly reaching the church's headquarters, Hexareth comments, "They were all leaders of the radical faction for reclaiming the Holy Land and have been punished. The reason they insisted on the director was very strange." Gavlin, a sacred guard, greets the Inquisitor, who asks, "What is it?" The guard responds, "It's a letter from Ira," he adds, and believe it or not, the Bible that had been sitting still began to write on its own. Sarah, surprised, asks, "Explain further." Gavlin continues, "It's about the story of the Paladin Eden. It reports a direct connection to the recent incident in the area." Azareth chuckles, saying, "His words are like seeds. I guess my disciple would eventually be written into the Bible." But the guard interrupts. Eden was using a divine spirit without the people's authorization, leaving his master uneasy. The Saint of Compassion was also named in the Bible. The guard continues, "The Vatican knows she requested the baptismal ceremony because Eden was acting alone, not reporting his movements to the ruins of Rn. And while his past results were worthy of praise, these were not. Since no one can use divine grace without the permission of their divinity," God says. Tetrath agrees. "That's correct. That's why I entered the political world." He placed the hand on the guard's shoulder and adds, "Regardless, I do have a little envy in my eyes. All procedures and formalities exist for a purpose. Best. And you must not forget that fact." Galen tries to argue that it was for the survival of the organization, but Sorath says that this place merely serves God in an efficient and unsupported way. So that meant Eden was entirely capable of serving God with his body, and he would shackle him if he forgot the essence of faith. But looking at it this way, it seemed that bad omens were beginning to move. He needed to see his disciple for himself before the insects began to devour him. A festival is happening on the ship while the saint uses her power, and Eden observes from afar, saying the words showed their hard work, since it had been 4 days since he'd been finding comfort among the people. Ewan comes down the stairs, asking Daryl to wait a moment. The hunter apologizes for trying to descend quietly, but that thing was heavier than expected. Ewan complains about him using weight as an excuse. Eden smiles, asking what they were doing in the middle of the night. But Daryl apologizes for intruding first, and Ewan offers a drink, saying it wasn't so bad as to be thrown away. Then the hunter says he has something to tell his master just for a moment. Eden agrees, telling him to speak freely. Ewan apologizes for saying this so suddenly, but he thinks they should stop here. The reason is that he doesn't want to hinder his lord's mission because of his own lack of skill. Eden reflects that they're right. Both were now capable enough, and their powers had improved day by day. They would have been the ones to lose their lives if they had been with him when he faced Elpus. Eden asked, "Is that what you mean? Do you truly want to leave?" Ewan denies it, saying, "I want to serve you until my last breath," and Daryl feels the same. Eden wants to know exactly what they need. "Only then can I allow it," he says. Both reply that the Sword Saint of the North will take care of them for a while. They add that if they work hard, they may have a chance to live freely someday. Eden reflects that's what it meant. They were frustrated at not being able to help, and it was admirable that they didn't give up, even while burning with ambition. But in that case, he will pull them back when they grow stronger. He says the old man was alone, and he will demand an official order for this place. His subordinates laugh, saying they won't let him down. Eden reflects that both of them must grow strong enough in the future to survive. He wonders when they became so passionate. And Daryl asks if they can drink together since it's not against the rules. Thus, they share the drink, making a toast for the liberation of the people. The next day, at the port of the city of Ira, the sire descends, calling for the agent of God and asking if the hero from the Bible had arrived. Someone in the crowd wonders if that's the reason for all the excitement. The Paladin, who obeys the church, acts on his own. But a man points out that several boats, carrying the hero mentioned in the Bible, are approaching. Eden is beside Uriel. The girl comments that they can even drop from the outside, but they will investigate as soon as possible. Eden responds, saying it was simply a divine revelation. She laughs in her final moments there, saying that those words sounded like blasphemy. Eden slowly controls the crowd as they disembark from the boat, but someone yells for him to stop. The heroic Paladin would be arrested for violating church laws and acting independently. Eden agrees with that, saying the human rights of the Sire tribe must be protected. The Paladin protests, saying they shouldn't be protected because they are heretics. Eden says they were forgiven of their crimes through divine grace, and that means they have the right to remain under the authority of the sea god. The man calls him a bastard and says the problem is that he used divine grace without permission. But Sir approaches, telling him to wait, then walks over with Sileron and Jude. Hexerath approaches his disciple with a smile on his face. The Paladin says the Inquisitor has finally arrived and he was just about to send the people away. However, the old man glances sideways, saying that sending all those heretics away was excessive. He tries to boast that it was his duty as a paladin, asking only for a moment to explain everything. But Surith interrupts him, saying he misunderstood his words, and so he'll give the paladin one last chance, wanting to know who he was about to escort. The man thinks something feels wrong, saying that due to the church's treatment of heretics, he would arrest the paladin Eden. But Sileron grits her teeth, asking if he doesn't understand and if his brain is just for decoration. Because if so, she'll take a look. But Sarah interrupts, saying he'll take it from there. He wants to know how the knight dares to try sending away someone who is recognized as a hero by the Bible itself. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye-bye.